Hello, everyone. Welcome to Babies with Knives. Today, with me, we have uh, Darren Watts, and we'll be playing a Savage Worlds adaptation called Explorers of the Fantastic. I'm your hostess, Alice Peng. To my left here is Brandon Powers.
Howdy, howdy.
To my right is Aldo Regalado.
Hello?
And to his right is Tim Lamaster.
Yay!
And up in the corner there, up in our VIP spot, is Darren Watts. How are you doing, Darren?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me.
Good. We're running a little late this morning, but we're getting going. So we appreciate you dropping in and doing this for us. I'm going to throw it over to you. Why don't you tell us about the art I have showing for us and what we're going to be playing?
Well, we're playing Explorers of the Fantastic. It is a game, it's a Savage Worlds Adventure Edition based game. It's a setting created, the premise of which is the third bomb we dropped on Japan in World War II woke up giant monsters. And, the world, is fully aware that they exist, right? Like the Life magazine photographer who flew over, Japan, catching pictures of these, skyscraper destroying monsters, basically won a Pulitzer Prize. So the world is fully aware that these things exist. The players are part of an organization called the Explorers of the Fantastic, which is sort of a National Geographic Society for weird stuff, for exploring the world as we now kind of like have come to understand it. Now that we acknowledge that these things exist. One of the things that the existence of kaiju, of giant monsters, has taught us is that we don't know crap about physics. Clearly, the square cube law is completely out the window, and the technological advances that we have made in the last 10 years since the war have in part been based on what we have learned from studying dead giant monsters or, captured giant monsters, that sort of thing. And so a Cold War has developed between the Allied countries, the Allied nations of World War II, and communist nations that is not only being fought over nuclear technology like the real one was, but is also being fought over control and understanding of megatheriology, basically, of giant monster related science. And because of this, we now can manipulate gravity a bit, which allows us to have much cooler ships and planes, and is accelerated the space race. We have amazing medicine. We have amazing technology that's all been derived from these giant monsters. And so, when a new giant monster appears in the world somewhere, the Explorer Society works with the various allied governments and sends experts out to find out what's in fact actually going on, to confirm that it's real, to learn about it. Each giant monster, each kaiju is unique and has its own properties and abilities and things. So they, if it's a menace, we try to corral it. If we can't corral it, we kill it. If it's not a menace, we try to adapt to it. We try to leave it alone in its natural area and study it and make sure that people are protected from it. And then, of course, we have agents from the other side who are trying to do the same thing themselves. And we're, like I said, we're fighting a Cold War over that right now. So you will periodically, occasionally run into Russian or Chinese agents who are trying to get to the same things that you are. So our heroes today are part of an advanced team that gets sent out when they get word of a potential giant monster. You are the first team being sent in to confirm whether or not that's true. There are backup teams behind you that, if it is true, can be sent in with their various levels of expertise. But you're kind of like the first encounter team.
Awesome.
It's your job to find out whether this is real and how dangerous it is, and inform the rest of the world about it. So
Awesome. So, would you like us to tell our viewers about the characters we're playing?
Sure,
Would you like to?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Brandon, you're on the lower left. Why don't you start?
Okay, I'm going to be playing Ruby Sullivan. She was born in Louisiana back in 1916, and has led a rough and tumble life. Basically, a tomboy that learned to become a pilot, joined Wings Over Britain program, and flew bombers during the war. And so now she's, continuing as an ace fighter pilot with the team.
Right. It's her job to get the team there and get them out safely. She's also the best shot on the team. So.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I'm going to be playing Mateus Souza. Mateus Souza was born in Brazil to a father who managed several farms for foreign investors, foreign powers, and such. Never got to have his own stuff. Mateus grew up traveling all over South America and spent time in the wilderness away from his family. In 1937, during the military coup d'etat, he ended up traveling the world after that, just leaving South America behind. And he became I guess I'm playing him, so became a newspaper reporter and for specifically photojournalism. So I'm a photographer for newspapers, magazines, whatnot. And I do worldwide correspondences through Europe, and I've done a great deal in the Amazons. I'm in fact, very much awarded. I've got several awards in my belt. But I did join the Explorers in 1974 because this just is too great of an opportunity for photography to give.
Yeah, it was 47 because the game takes place in 1955.
1947.
So, yeah.
I apologize.
Right. Yep.
So, Aldo, what about you?
Yeah, you know what? I had my character on here and I shifted him to better see him, and he disappeared. So I don't know if Tim wants to go first while I pull him back up.
Aldo is playing the Invisible Man.
Right?
Yes.
Tim, why don't you go
first? Okay. My character's name is William Abbott, or Bill Abbott. I was born in Brighton, England in 1914, son of a doctor and a nurse, so I went to medical school. I went to World War II. I served with the Royal Army Medical Corps, but was badly injured in Abbeville, wherever that is. In 1940, I lost my left leg below the knee to cell blast and shrapnel. I recovered, and I finished my degree and everything. Okay, they're playing down now. So I have a prosthetic, and I apparently know a lot of ways to kill people, to kill and injure humans with venoms or other poisons. So
he's an expert on poison and venom, so he's actually good at healing people from them. It's not so much as knows how to kill them, though I suppose he knows that too.
I just remember the movie Predators, where we found out the one guy that was a doctor was a serial killer, and he actually knew how to work poisons and do that stuff. But I'm not a psychopath. Yeah. So
Yet.
Not that kind of game.
Well, you just need to meet the right kaiju for that to change. Right, Darren?
Right, yeah.
So, Aldo, what about you?
Yeah, I'm back here. So I'm playing Tham Samang, who was born in Cambodia in 1925. He was always handy with tools, good at repairing cars and boats, and did that for a living until he was about 15 years old. And then Japan occupied the country in 1941. And was put to work as an engineer for the Japanese Army. There he learned how to work with planes and military vehicles. When his country was freed in 1945, Samang found work with the Allied forces occupying Japan, including some of the top secret military applications of advanced physics related to kaiju. And then he moved to California when his mentors did, joining the Explorers so he could continue to study the cutting edge of vehicle design in 1956.
Awesome.
That's them.
Great. Let's get started.
Okie doke. So your team has been assembled. Like I said, most of you have been in fact, I believe all of you have been with the Explorers for at least 5 years. So you have been on multiple missions. If you take a look, if you know anything about Savage Worlds, for this, you're built as seasoned characters, right? Like I built you originally as beginners, and then actually advanced you through time, so that you would be at the kind of ability level of characters who have been in 6 or 8 adventures, right? So you have some some experience for this. So each of you has been a member of the Explorers for at least 5 years, and you have each encountered on some level some very strange situations, seen giant monsters up close. You've been in hazardous situations. Whether or not you guys have worked together before is pretty much up to you to decide. But none of this is going to be new to you, right? This is not your first rodeo being on this kind of mission here.
Right.
And you have been, you're assembled in the Explorers Mountain Base in the middle of Mount Whitney in Southern California. And given a quick briefing before being sent out, Ruby is actually going to fly you to Western Africa. And so you got a quick briefing, basically, that the reason that you're going out there is there have been multiple sightings of a creature that the locals refer to as Mamlambo.
Mamlambo.
Yeah, Mamlambo.
Mamlambo. Okay.
And Mamlambo is a creature that, has been part of Western African myth for generations, for, thousands of years, possibly. Is a enormous creature of some sort. His description kind of varies depending on the story that you hear. He lives in the river, but sometimes gets out of the river and wanders around in the jungle as well. He is known for eating hippopotami, and is also kind of a story that parents tell their kids, right? Like if you, he's kind of like the creature who comes to punish you if you don't do something right? If you go wandering off in the woods and don't listen to your parents, then Mamlambo will eat you. Okay. So don't do it, right? And was generally regarded, just as a myth, as a monster story, except that in the last 6 months or so, there have been several sightings of an enormous creature wandering around in the West African jungle, and you have a enterprising fisherman took a picture of it. And so you have one kind of grainy picture of an enormously long creature that is, has kind of several coils in its body traveling through the river, right? It's kind of like a Loch Ness monster picture, right? Like you can see, it's not a very good picture. You can't pick out a lot of details, but assuming this is not a hoax, that thing's got to be at least 100 feet long. And so, it's the most impressive piece of evidence for the existence of Mamlambo that anybody has ever seen. And the Explorer Society would very much like to know if this is real or if somebody is messing with them. It's certainly possible that it could be a hoax. It's certainly possible that it could just be a, weird collection of, rocks and junk in the river or something like that. But, now that we know that giant monsters exist, we kind of take this sort of thing much more seriously because we have excellent evidence of, 10 or 15 others of them. So we want to know if this one is real. We are putting together an extended team that will be available to follow you if you guys say that this is worth it, right? You're the Explorer team. You're going in first to see if this is for real. And if you can call on the Explorers to say that we need a real team sent out here for this, right? But that's going to take a couple of months to put together. So it's not something where you can kind of just call on them and they'll be there immediately. But you're the ones who are kind of making the decisions whether the Explorers are going to be spending money and time and resources on this or not. And so, Ruby is kind of, in charge of flying you out there. She's got the, very cool state-of-the-art Explorer's jet to fly you there. The country you're going to is called Sierra Leone. It's not actually a country. It's right now it's a crown colony because it still belongs to England. This is the British West Africa.
Okay.
And it won't be independent for another 10 years or so. So
is it like today? We're still like the last place you ever want to go on vacation?
Well, it's very wild still.
This is the diamond mines causing trouble and everything?
Yep.
Okay.
This is the primary industry. The primary industry, from the west there is in fact De Beers. This is the the source of probably at this point 60 to 70% of the supply of diamonds in the world. The mines out there are one of the primary kind of financial resources of the country. There is one major city called Freetown that is on the coast, and that's where you'll be starting from. And you've got a whole set of maps of the area, and you've got full briefing on like the political situation of the country, that sort of thing, which you can all go over on the flight. I mean, it's a 16-hour flight to get there, so you've got plenty of time to study up. If you have specific questions about the country that you want to ask me for this, you can do that at any time, or whatever other preparations that you are doing. But the plan is to land in Freetown and then work with local officials to basically head out into the wilderness from there, get permission so that you're not harassed by the locals and that kind of thing, and then go explore in the jungle and travel up the rivers that this creature has supposedly been seen on.
Awesome. So I have a question. My question is, you mentioned that this is jungle, but jungle can mean a lot of things. It can mean hilly, it can mean flat, it can mean dense and humid, and then there are some that are surprisingly dry. I'm wondering if you can give me a little more idea about the environment we're going into.
The environment's going to be wet.
Okay.
Sure. It's going to be wet. It's going to vary as you travel, because you'll be starting at the coast and moving inland, and as you go inland, you'll be moving kind of uphill, right? Because the mountains that are the source of the mines and that sort of thing for it are well inland, and then there are rivers that come down the mountains and empty out into the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay.
And so you're going to be traveling up the rivers, taking one that you go to, upriver, into kind of like the thickest of the jungle wilderness before the mountains begin.
Okay.
Right? The jungle, the canopy there is probably averages being 30 or 40 feet at that point. But it does vary pretty wildly. There are still plenty of natives who do live out there for it. So, there will be villages, particularly along the rivers, trade along the greater and lesser Pearson River, that sort of thing. So. Probably 70% of the population of the country lives in or around the one big city on the coast. So,
okay. As a photographer, one very important question in my research: how is the lighting? Because different
wildly variable.
Violently variable, okay. Because certain environments and jungles, the light's pretty decent. Other parts are very dark. Okay, so I need to be very. I will be packing.
Be ready for anything. It will change rapidly on you.
Okay, so I will pack multiple sets of lights of the different types of flashing lights for best ability to take. I don't want a grainy shot. I mean, I'm a professional. Right. I'm not going to take a grainy shot for the magazine.
You'll note your gear actually says superior camera. You basically have like state of the art stuff. It's better than the explorers pay for your for your photography gear for you. So.
Okay, cool.
So you're like Carl Denham.
Yeah, right.
Awesome. So I've got an extra couple of camera bags, and since it's Absolutely. 1950s, it means that my cameras are like 6 times the size of cameras.
Absolutely, yes.
Awesome. It also sounds like I should be leaving my suede jacket on the plane because it's gonna be hot.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's May 1955. We're not at the height of summer yet, but it's going to be pretty hot out there.
Okay, so I'm leaving my suede jacket because I imagine myself to wear the suede jacket and the explorer's hat. So suede jacket is being left on the.
You're the jungle expert of this team, right? Like everybody else is probably going to follow your lead on like how to dress and how to get around there.
Awesome. So I will make sure everyone dresses in light layers, and I will tell people that, especially those that have not been in the jungles before, that they want to make sure they tuck their pants into their boots because you do not want stuff climbing up your legs, as they like to do.
And check your boots in the morning.
Yeah,
Don't put them on.
exactly.
Because
Exactly.
people will crawl in there.
Exactly. Make sure the creepy crawlies. I will also.
So the Explorers. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the Explorers Society has kind of like made its introductions for you, right? So the first when you arrive in Freetown, you're being expected to meet with representatives of the local government for this, who will hopefully be providing some support to you and can answer questions specifically about the area that you're going in.
Okay.
So the first thing that you'll have to do is go to this meeting with like the colony governor. Who is, runs the government on behalf of the British, right, at this point. So
great. So do you guys want to have worked together before, or do you guys just want this 14-hour plane ride to have been timed we got to know each other?
I think it makes sense. We've worked together before. It's probably easier that way.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, there are thousands of people in the Explorers, right? So it's
Yeah.
perfectly plausible that you didn't, but if you want to, groups that work together, the Explorers want to keep them together, right? So if you're a good team, they're going to want you to, keep working as a good team.
Okay. Great.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yep. That sounds awesome. Then.
Okay. Is there any other prep that you guys want to do before you, or either on the plane or before you get on the plane for that? Otherwise, we will have you landing in Freetown.
My last question then, since we have an idea of what people do, you guys would know that I'm a photographer. And if we're going into jungle like this, I'll make sure I load up with a machete to cut our path if we need. But what do other people do? I know that we have a doctor. I know Bill's a doctor. What would be like 2 or 3 words what you do, Ruby and Samang?
Samang's an engineer, a mechanic, an engineer.
Cool.
Like kind of
so
a
if our car
gadgeteer.
breaks down, you fix it up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Also, if you need, to make a bomb out of something, he's very good at it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
He improvises.
Okay, he's MacGyver. Got it.
Yes.
Right. Yep.
I indeed am.
And Brandon, what would I know from having worked with you?
I'm a pilot.
Okay, great. Just that way you have.
And
if we
get in,
Sure.
Sorry, go ahead, Brandon.
if we get into it, I'm probably the person that's gotten us out.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's her job. It's her job to get you there, keep you safe, and get you out. And she is, like I said, she's the pilot, but she's also the best shot on the team. So.
Okay, I'm ready for Freetown.
Okay.
Can you provide us a map of the area we're going into, or are we getting that in Freetown?
You've got a whole folder full of maps.
Fantastic.
From this. You've got multiple ones that have been provided, from different places. It's mildly disturbing because you have so many maps, historical ones. How much of the section of the country that you're supposed to be going to is blank on the maps, right? It's like you've got 2 major rivers and a whole bunch of tributaries going off of them up into the mountains. The mountains are well mapped because that's where De Beers is, right? That's where all the diamond mines are. Mm-hmm. The section of kind of, like jungle between the mountains and the Atlantic Ocean, that's a big kind of white space on your map, right? There's not a whole lot of detail of what's going on in there because commercially there's very little reason to go there, right? There's not, it's not a part of the country that, honestly, that white people have spent a lot of time in. So,
right.
For how big of a section are we looking for Mamlambo? Are we talking hundreds of miles and trying to track down through that?
That's kind of up to you, right? I mean, it's you have a mandate to go out and follow up the stories of them. The sighting reports that you have begin probably 30 to 50 miles north of Freetown up the coast and go inland, possibly as far as the mountains, right? So it could be a 200-mile stretch, but you hope that you won't need to cover all of that, right? Like you're just,
Okay.
Well, before we actually land in, I would be interested in just doing an aerial survey to give us an idea of specific features that we can look for and such.
Sure.
As we are, if we have 50 miles north and then inland from there, just to give us a general overview. I'm certain we're not going to see it since it's a large area, but
Yeah, you can come in over that section. You can schedule your flight so that it comes in to, and then goes south to Freetown, right? There's only one airport in Sierra Leone, and it's 10 miles south of the city. So if you come in, flying over the jungle portion of it, then you would fly south to Freetown, and then 10 miles farther to the actual airport.
If you're allowing us to arrange for our flight, would we be able to have our final leg of our flight be by helicopter so that I can be taking some aerial shots?
You probably don't need to be. Her plane is so good that you can probably actually get some decent shots out of it. You are flying, kind of like the cool. If you take a look at the planes in the picture of the, with the monster fort, you're flying one of those, right? So they can come in pretty low, and they're extremely maneuverable. That's part of like the cool, the gear of the setup for this is our state of the art of flying vehicles is much better than the real world. So
so we're kind of like glider level, glider or jet pilot.
You can be with her flying that. That's her. Awesome. That's her piloting skill.
Okay.
So.
Ruby, can you turn us to the right?
So yeah, you're flying over. I mean, the canopy here is super thick, right? Like you're not seeing ground level stuff here.
But taking some nice shots of that canopy.
The two major rivers that you will be kind of like, between and around are called the Greater and Lesser Scarces Rivers. Okay. And they run basically from the mountains, they run west to the ocean. Like they come downhill from the mountains, and then a whole bunch of smaller like tributaries kind of like join them along the way, right? So there's lots of places to get off the main river onto a much smaller one. Okay. And so you've got this kind of like network of rivers. And that's the primary thing you can see from the sky is this kind of like, they look like blood vessels kind of thing, right? Like there's two big ones and a whole bunch of little ones that kind of connect them and go off in different directions. And they get those two rivers by the time all of the tributaries have joined up and it gets close to the ocean. Those are some big, serious rivers, right? With some serious current. And that's where the fishing community for the locals is, right? That area, as you fly over, you see that there are hundreds of fishing boats out there, with trawling with nets and that sort of thing. That's kind of like the primary industry of this portion of the country.
All right, so yeah, we do our flyover, we take our pictures, we just get a general idea of, since our maps are blank and all, but a general idea. We don't see the ground, but, we also don't see this area that the 100-foot monster has clearly destroyed the land. And then I guess we're going in for our landing.
By his stories, he seems to get through the jungle just fine. Yeah, like, people who tell stories of like seeing
up and down and around.
Right, yeah, that he's some sort of like a snake or eel or lizard or something that he moves through trees very easily. So.
Okay. But yeah, I wanted to make sure I got a good identification of, some of the plants, because plants are very medicinal, and it's still. You were talking about the fact that our tech is that vastly advanced, because of the Kaijus. Could you explain to me, like, what kind of high tech we would be dealing with? Because obviously, my cameras are still 6 times the size of what it would be in 2020.
Sure. It's still 50s tech. It's just we have a scientific explanation for the sort of things that you would see in like 50s sci-fi movies and that sort of thing, right? Like, this plane clearly should not be able to fly aerodynamically. Well, it does because we have a cool anti-gravity generator in the back, right? That's how we make it like look that way, right?
Okay.
So pretty much that's kind of our default explanation for how all the cool things that you see in a 50s monster movie could possibly be real is
Darren, so, is it possible for him to? We've encountered Kaiju before, obviously. I think you mentioned they all have different properties. Do they have? Do we know if they have like signature energy fields or anything like that? Like that they emit any sort of distinctive?
Some are radioactive and some are not. And so ones that are radioactive can usually be detected that way. We're not quite at the point where we can say, like, definitely, it's like, well, I have my Geiger counter here that tells me that this one is clearly Godzilla and that one is somebody else. Right? Like we're not at that level of definition.
Right.
And like I said, since every kaiju is just is unique for this, until we've actually gotten up close and studied one, we don't have any information on that sort of thing yet.
Right.
But we do know that some specifically are radioactive, some are not, and we don't really understand quite how they work if they're not, right? We're still, like I said, we're 10 years into the existence of this science at all, so there's a lot of questions we have not come to a conclusive answer to yet.
Right. I figured we'd be very, very fuzzy on that. I guess if his skills allow, and I'm not sure the breadth of some of the technical skills here, but if his skills allow, Saman would like to put together kind of a proto-detector that may or may not work, basically like take whatever research or data that we have on existing kaiju and have that available to kind of calibrate a device that may or may not, I mean, I'm not expecting to have an actual kaiju detector, at least to have the raw materials on him to, play around with it and maybe...
Your kit in here, for example, would include a Geiger counter, right, with this. So that would be a thing that if it turns out that this thing is radioactive, well, then you could be recording it and, like making some stuff on this, right?
Perfect.
You would have basically like a kind of a standardized set of, we're going into a situation that potentially has a giant monster. Here's all my cool stuff that I might be using to study it, right?
Okay, perfect.
I don't know which one of these I'm going to use yet, but one of these things in the bag, right? So
Perfect.
you can pretty much wave that you've got
that.
a cool thing in your bag all the time. So, and that really applies for all of your, your skills, right? Like, I'm not, kind of like enforcing what gear that you carry, right? It's you've got the stuff that you need to do your cool thing. So,
okay, cool.
Okay.
All right, so after doing the flyover, you land at the airport. The Crown Colony officials have sent a car for you for this, so or a truck probably, so that you can load all of your various gear in there, and can get your plane out anytime that you decide that you need it. But flying over, it became clear that like a plane is probably not the vehicle that will be most useful here. And you have a reservation at one of the nicest hotels in Freetown, so they very quickly take you there. Freetown itself, like I said, it's built right on the shore of the Atlantic Ocean, and it's a city of about 200,000 people at this point. So it's far and away the largest thing around. It is very much built in. It's built in a very kind of like 19th century British colonial style. There's not a lot of tall buildings. There's a lot of 2- and 3-story beautiful, colonial architecture. A lot of white, a lot of blue to the colors of it. A lot of park space that's been cleared with like statues of various, historical figures. You have an amazing view out the window of the, your 3rd-story hotel room of the ocean and kind of, like the docks and everything below there. And the government office that you have been asked to kind of like check in on for this is down in one of the buildings. That's the government buildings are right on the docks, right? They're right on the shore. And you have, hang on just a second, you have an appointment with the Sierra Leone Protectorate Director of Security, a man named Gabriel Mansaray, is expecting to see you this afternoon.
Gabriel, okay.
Yep. So presumably, once you're all put away in your hotels and have everything you want, you head out to. It's just a walk from here. It's 6 or 8 blocks to get to the shore.
I'm going to take a few shots of Freetown, especially from the higher balconies of the hotel, and if they'll let me get on the rooftop, I'll do that too and take some shots.
Sure. Yep. Absolutely. In Freetown, they speak multiple languages. The official language of the government, obviously, is English, because it's the British government. And there is a Creole that almost everybody in the country speaks, which is a lot like English. If you speak English, you can kind of understand Creole. It's usually easier to do it verbally than written down because their spelling is just insane. But when you hear it, you can pick out, every sentence has 3 or 4 words that you recognize, right? Mm-hmm. They also speak some French here because the next country up to the north is Guinea, and that's part of French West Africa. So there's a fair amount of like crossover between those. And then there are about 6 or 8 notable native languages that get spoken here. Susu is the most common one in the city itself. So as you're walking there, you hear this kind of, this polyglot of different languages are all being spoken, and it seems most people in the city at least speak 3 or 4 different languages, right? Okay. As you are walking, looking for the building, right, like which of these government buildings is the one that your meeting is in, I'm going to randomly pick one of you. And it's Tim. Dr. Abbott, as you're walking along, the place that you're passing is, in fact, the police station. And there are the docks that go out from the police station. There are a couple of what are clearly are police boats that are kind of like in dock being serviced, right? They're being taken care of there.
Okay.
And as everybody else is kind of paying more attention to the numbers, looking for where your office is, you catch this whiff of a very kind of strange, fruity smell coming up from the docks. And you look over, and one of the police boats is being sprayed by a guy on the docks. He's got like a hand pump spray and like a big case on his back of this weird yellow liquid, and he's spraying the side of the boat, like the hull of the boat, just kind of like walking along with this kind of like goopy yellow, fruity smelling stuff. And you have no idea what that might be that he's doing. But while these guys, the other 3 are kind of like debating over whether, wait, it must be that building. No, wait, it's 200 is over there, kind of thing. You have the opportunity if you want to go look at this any closer.
Well, if you went directions, that's a policeman, so this guy works for the cops, so I'll walk over to him.
Okay.
Keep inside of my allies, I won't get them out of sight.
It's not far. Like I said, you're all walking along the docks, so you're not more than 100 feet away from him.
Hello, my good man. How are you doing today?
Good. Hello. I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing fine. Couldn't help but notice that. What exactly is the strange liquid you seem to be spraying on the boat?
It's bullum juice, sir.
What is that, may I ask?
Bullum is a fruit. It grows in the jungle for this, and this keeps the bugs off. That's this boat is going to have to go upriver in where the bugs get very bad, so we're spraying this now, trying to keep them off the. When they're on the ocean, it's not so bad. On the river, upriver, the bugs get very bad.
Yes, I've heard of that. Yes, that should be interesting.
Actually eat it. You can eat it too, but it's an acquired taste.
Well, I acquired many tastes in my travels, but I'll take your word for it. Would you happen to know what are we looking for? The consulate?
Yeah, basically, the director of security, the protectorate security offices.
Would you be so good as to direct me to the British consulate?
Sure. Well, the main building is over there. He kind of points to the one of the big ones there for it. He does not know specifically which office you're looking for, but he can at least get you into the right building.
So. Well, thank you, sir. William Abbott Dr. William Abbott is my name, and yours?
Holy crap, hang on. I have a list of...
That's a very interesting name. Is it a family name?
I have a list of random NPC names. Hang on. My name is Banja.
Banja, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Well, have a good day, and I might be calling on you to spray my boat with fruit juice.
It could be. We have a contract with the police for it, so...
Well, good day to you.
He goes back to, pumping his thing and spraying this, like, pulpy yellow gunk.
My fellows, I believe I have found the building we were looking for.
So you head inside, and you find the offices that you're looking for. It's kind of like a big central square in the center that's got a couple of like secretaries out there to help you, to point you at the offices around the outside of this ring. And they find the office that you want to go to. And you head inside, and Gabriel meets you at the door. He stands up, and he's got a fairly nice desk. He's a tall African man wearing a fairly nice suit, very thin, seems to be maybe in his 40s. wearing glasses, and he kind of comes around the desk to shake hands. There is an older white man sitting in one of the chairs of his office, like he was there already before you guys got there. And he is wearing an even nicer suit. He's a little, puffier. He's kind of probably 60 and a bit overweight. Clearly, sweating in the heat much more than Gabriel is. And Gabriel kind of, introduces you and says, I asked my friend here to also meet with you because I'm afraid I have some very bad news. This is Wallace Taylor, and he is a representative from the International Diamond Security Organization.
Okay.
His
You can
organization provides.
You can immediately see that Mateus is trying to basically hide a disdained look on his face.
Okay, right, fair. The only one of you who has specifically heard of this organization would be William for this, because it's relatively well known in England that the head of this organization now after the war is Percy Silito, who used to run MI5.
Oh, okay.
And so the IDSO is one of kind of like the favorite places for a lot of not OSS, but MI5 people to have wound up with working after World War II was over, right? So you will have at least heard of the organization. And once again, they provide security basically to national interests of and the company interests of diamond miners.
Okay.
And so Gabriel says, I'm so sorry to have to tell you this, but the area that you've requested to go into, that we received, from your organization saying that you wanted support going in there, is right now, I'm afraid, too dangerous for you to go to. I very strongly recommend that you put off your visit to the area, your local investigation for this, because we have a very strong problem right now with diamond smugglers, and that area that you're in is known to be an area that the smugglers basically are in better control of than we are. They're a very dangerous organization, very dangerous group. They're very violent. We are, kind of doing everything that we can with the local police and with the military to deal with them. And right now, that area is not a place that we can safely say that it is safe for you to go into. So I'm afraid that we cannot provide any support for you for this sort of thing. We're very sorry. We hope that maybe in the next 6 months, we'll have some better control over that area and can once again allow tourists like yourselves to go in there. And probably a couple of you kind of bristle at the use of the word tourist as you are. But he kind of, he keeps referring to you as tourists as he's doing this. He says, we simply can't guarantee your safety, so we can't.
We work in a line of work that we have no guarantees for our safety. We understand that you feel that we should not, but I think that all of us are prepared for that.
Well, as I said, I can't stop you from going, but he's kind of. It becomes clear as he's talking that he's been ordered to tell you not to go without an assumption that that's going to stop you, right? Kind of thing. But like officially now we can't be blamed for anything bad that happens to you for this because I gave you this warning in advance, right? Yep. He's being really kind of obvious that that's the case. Yeah. And he's also kind of like denying letting you use like a police boat or anything like that to go up there. Okay. We don't. I'm sorry. You'll have to arrange for your own travel for this. And once again, I must, kind of insist that really you should reconsider this this plan of yours to go up there. It's far too dangerous.
Yeah. Thank you for the advice.
We appreciate the warning, but it is unnecessary.
Can you please direct me to the telegraph office? I'd like to be able to send this report to my superiors.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Right down the hall, around the corner, second left.
Where is it that we can procure our own transportation?
Well, the Freetown has plenty of places that you can rent a boat or that sort of thing for this. Ordinarily, most places will, provide a crew for you if you're, willing to pay for them.
And what is our budget from our?
By Sierra Leone standards, effectively infinite.
Okay.
Right. This is a very poor area, and British pounds spend very well here.
Awesome.
So.
Mr. Taylor, can I ask a question?
Yes.
How recently?
It's the first. He doesn't even talk. Like, this is the first time he says anything.
Oh, this was the whole time. It was
Mansoray who was talking the whole
Mansoray.
time. Taylor was just kind of like shaking his head, with this and watching you guys.
Okay, so yeah, he will address Taylor because he feels like Taylor's the one really in charge here. So, can I ask you a question? When did this area become so dangerous that we shouldn't even come here? Why weren't we told this before?
It's always been a concern for us. Smuggling has been a problem since, for 100 years in Sierra Leone.
Yeah.
But this particular group has really become a very serious problem in the last, say, 6 months to a year. For it.
But we made arrangements to come here before that. I mean, just recently, well after that. Why weren't we told this before?
I have no answer for you. I don't know. The group that is up there for this, the locals call them the Cressmen, which is the Creole word that basically means crazy men, right? For this, even the locals think that they are too violent and too unpredictable to deal with. So it's not something that Sierra Leone exactly kind of advertises. Down here close to the city, the area is still pretty safe, and we don't want to discourage people to come and visit our fine country. For this, we're just, it's up in the north.
Allow
area.
them to come, and then you tell them it's not safe to go, so they have to stay in town and pay you money.
Most people don't request to go up in the area that you're actually requesting to go to. So,
my dear man, most people are not us. We are not most people.
Certainly.
I should have you know that. We are not tourists.
Yes, of
course.
We
have a mission, we have a purpose, we have a job to do. So
he kind of flutters at you diplomatically, right? It's
And because it is so dangerous, is there anywhere we can go to get more ammunition? I brought my weaponry, but I did not.
My dear sir, this is Freetown. You can buy anything here.
Good. Then we will leave you to your very important duties here in Freetown. Yes, I look at everyone.
Absolutely.
And
as I said, I hope that you consider my warnings and have a very enjoyable stay in the safe portions of the country.
Well,
so you head outside, and you're literally only outside. I mean, you have like a couple of moments here on the docks, basically, to talk to each other without him around, if you want to, before you head anywhere else. But then I'm going to do a scene, so if you have a couple of minutes of chatting to each other, go ahead.
I'm going to go to the telegraph office and send a message to superiors telling them what happened, what our plans are.
Sure. Okay.
Even though they don't respond to us, I got to send a report anyhow.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm very suspicious about this.
Yeah.
These diamond smugglers, diamond miners, all they do is pillage. They destroy the world and awaken things they do not understand. It is why we are in more and more danger every year. Next thing they find a kaiju we cannot deal with, or a gas down in one of those mines, and then who goes to see them and deal with them? Us. Oh, but it is dangerous to go out there, but we're going to make the trouble.
So you're standing out on the dock having this discussion, the three of you, I guess, waiting
I'm venting about the...
waiting for Dr. Abbott to get back from sending his telegraph.
Yep.
And it's like I said, it's a beautiful, sunny day. About 90 degrees, but there's a nice breeze off the water. And as you're standing there, having just come out of the office, a man walks up to you. He's wearing a suit, an African man, but much younger. and says, I understand that you are visitors to Freetown for the first time. Can I recommend to you that fish fry place across the dock over there for that one over there, and kind of like points out this building. Really, the food there is excellent, and it will be very you'll be very happy to have gone there.
Suddenly, I am very hungry. Anyone else? I look him up and down. You said he's wearing a suit, like
Yep.
tie.
He looks like he's one of the government officials, but like a very young one, right? Like
Okay,
he's probably
is he wearing
only
a
25.
jacket in this heat?
No.
Okay.
No, he's got a tie and his, dress shirt. But
Yes. Suddenly, I am very hungry. Any specials we should order, or any particular?
it's all excellent there. Everything there is excellent.
Anyone we should ask for to serve us specifically that knows the menu best?
No, the lady at the counter will be completely able to help you.
Thank you so
I'm
much
suddenly
for your
very
time.
Oh, not at all. I hope you enjoy the meal. And then he kind of, hustles off back into the, kind of maze of government offices in there.
So we're still waiting on Bill to get back.
Dr. Abbott comes back, having sent his, his telegraph, basically just, unless there's something strange, I assume you just, info dumped on them.
Yeah, well, but no, before Bill gets back, I kind of whisper conspiratorially, "Is that strange? Was that him trying to tell us we should go there for some other... he seemed too well dressed for restaurant hawker? Yes?"
I think that he
definitely.
I think that he's associated with the other parts of the government that might have other interests for us.
That is why I thought that I was suddenly very hungry. I could eat a mule. That's the American term, yes? Mule?
Yeah.
Mule.
It's either that or it's a trap.
If it's a trap, I have Betsy and I have... you told me to rename Ruby when I met you. I still have Ruby, but I point at my pistol. I need to rename her, you said. But that is bad luck. I will not rename Ruby.
You each have your stun pistols as well. I think I've sent you
Betsy is my stun.
write-up of this for it.
Betsy's my stun gun, and Ruby was my...
Right, okay. Those are easy to hide. They're designed to be like concealable, right? Like it's not so much walking around Freetown with a rifle, but walking around with your stun pistol is no problem at all.
So yeah.
All right, so Dr. Abbott comes back and you head over to the fish fry place.
Yeah, tell him we're suddenly very hungry and want to eat.
It's kind of like a cafeteria style deal. You basically walk up to the counter. They've got like a list of the various fish dishes, kind of all the local stuff. And like place an order, and then the seating is just kind of like picnic tables, like along the front. Mm-hmm. And so you order some food. They give you, if you ask for recommendations, they give you stuff. As you are kind of like gathering your food and going back to your table, at the door, like the bell rings of somebody else coming in, and it's Taylor, the guy from the diamond store.
The guy that
in,
was,
and he's just kind of like looking there through like and he looks around just like, this is my favorite place. I am so delighted to be here. And he looks over and he sees, oh, good to see you guys here as well. Might I join you? And he's getting his order to kind of like come over and sit at your table.
We're just enjoying the hospitality of your town as you suggested.
Well, you picked one of the finest places to eat. So he gets a couple of bites in, and then he's kind of like leaning in to be a little quieter, but it's really just you guys in the place, right?
Yep.
And he says, so I'm guessing from what I heard and from looking you over and from what I know about people in the Explorers Society, in the Explorers organization, that you have no intention of listening to dear Mr. Mansoret and his completely plausible warnings, and probably are intending to go anyway. Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, so we did not come all the way up. We did not come all the way up here for nothing. So yes.
Right. Well, everything he told you is true. We have had a great deal of difficulty managing this new operation. Honestly, we have lost 2 boats up there relatively recently. The level of violence, the level of organization, we have not encountered a criminal operation as skilled as this one seems to be. And so, given that you as a group are, seem to be a group with a large number of skills and can handle yourself in difficult situations, if you do intend to go marching around in the jungle up there and would happen to find anything out about the local smugglers, if you were to, say, accidentally find a base of theirs of some sort, a camp, or one of the villages that they, operate out of, my organization would be extremely delighted to hear back from you about that. If you can, kind of penetrate in on a level that unfortunately my local forces are not able to. Let me just say that in this kind of circumstance, the local police and, Coast Guard forces are not entirely reliable. And so if you were to find any information, I am sure you would find it completely worth your time to pass it along to us. These people are very dangerous. They're killers. They should be taken out.
So you would like us to scout where these insurgents are?
If you're going to be walking around in those jungles anyway and happen to come across any such useful information, I'm not asking you to, go out and become operatives for us or anything. I'm working on the assumption that you're going out there anyway.
And
Why couldn't you ask this in front of Mansoret?
Sorry.
I'm sorry?
Why couldn't you ask this in front of Mansoret?
Well, as I said, I believe Mansoret is probably a fine gentleman, but I do not trust his staff. I believe that one of the reasons that this local smuggling operation is as effective as it is that it has in fact actually penetrated the government in several different locations.
I would like to...
Which is why I'm looking for somebody who does not work for our government.
I would like to size him up.
Mm-hmm.
A bit.
Okie doke.
Because while it could be that he wants us to give him information for legal reasons, he could also be trying to basically create channels elsewhere on his own. So
sure.
Yeah.
That would be a basic notice roll. Yep. Basically, you're kind of you're analyzing him. So you get a D6 for that for the skill, and then you have another D6 because you're a wild card for this. So you roll both dice and take the better of the two.
I got 6 as my good die of the 2.
Okay, that's a spike. When you roll the maximum on a die, you get to roll it again and add.
Awesome. 4.
Okay, so that's a total of 10. Your goal for succeeding on this was a 4, and so since you beat that by more than 4, that's not just a success, it's also a raise. So you feel pretty confident about this information. You've looked him up and down. You think he is probably telling the truth, which is not to say he's not a sneaky bastard.
Right.
Right? He does, in fact, he is, his job is managing spies, right? Mm-hmm. So he's good at lying. He's good at, or used to, being lied to. And he's probably telling the truth, at least about the part where he says he does not trust the Sierra Leone government for this, and is genuinely willing to, like I said, what he has as a resource is money. And if you're willing to go out and, provide him some information, he seems legit that he's willing to pay for that information.
And what is it you
probably don't feel like you tried the end of the smuggling operation. It's costing De Beers and these other companies an enormous amount of money to have, raw diamonds being smuggled out of the country.
And
he basically works, he works for a government organization that was founded by De Beers.
Okay. So
right?
He
so like
literally is working for diamond
De Beers are really his bosses.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Can everyone hear me?
I can hear
Yep.
you.
Yeah. Same.
I can hear you.
Just trying to get the headphone figured out. I did get it working, so I just have
Sure.
it on.
And would you be able to aid us in acquiring some transport through the area?
I can certainly recommend some places to you. Yes, absolutely.
You know any individuals with some skill in eliminating undesirables who would seek to hinder our expedition?
Ooh. Well, I'll be honest. I kind of assumed that you could handle that. I don't have any, security. I can't commit any security forces to traveling with you. That would certainly that would draw attention to your situation.
Oh, I'm not talking about. I'm talking about more freelance help.
Right.
In that area.
It's really not something that I have access to right now. If you find something and, come back and tell us about it, we can send in other teams
Understood.
after the fact.
Do you have intelligence or updated maps from what we have, since you have vested interest and are local? Our maps are surprisingly incomplete.
Yes. To be honest, he will probably say yes to start out with, but if you actually show him what you have, your stuff is honestly just as good, if not better, than what he has.
Okay.
Right? I mean, the explorers themselves have given you the best
Right.
maps that they can get access to. He doesn't have better resources than the explorers do.
Okay.
So his maps are going to look a lot like yours.
Speaking of which, I've traveled with everyone here before. Does anybody here have any skill in cartography that I would know of?
No, not specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you'd be the best at it. So.
Yeah, I figured that I'm probably the best at it based on that.
Yeah, cartography isn't a specific skill in this game, but it's the sort of thing that you presumably would have. So
because as a survivalist and
exactly.
being perceptive and such like that. Okay.
Right.
So
yeah. For that sort of thing, I would fold that in under making a survival roll. So.
Awesome. Well, then I would.
Okie dokie, Taylor. As far as I'm concerned, if we see anything, we'll tell you. No promises.
Of course. No, I expect none. Like I said, I'm just letting you know that should you have that information, should you acquire that information, it would be considered valuable back here in Freetown.
Is there any political upset here that we should be aware of? Like, is there any possibility from the information and intel we've been given that these diamond smugglers are smuggling for a rebellion of any sort or anything like that, that there is any politics beyond diamonds and wanting to get rich?
There is no organized rebellion in Sierra Leone right now. Mm-hmm. Historically, I will tell you, you're about 6 or 8 years away from a revolution happening here. Yep. So, yes. And so there are certainly plenty of tribespeople in that area. There are plenty of like the Susu and the Kenyi and a couple of others who are very much not fond of the British government. So it will formally become independent in 1961, and that will immediately lead to a civil war. Several years after that.
And there was a rebellion
when the
for
British
about 4
get out,
years
they get out badly
before they got independence.
Right. Well, and then they more or less keep fighting for
decades afterwards
too. So, yes. So there is no formal organization. You are not aware. Neither Taylor nor your files suggest that the Crestmen specifically are, like an anti-government organization. But that being said, they may be being supported by the locals because they are a thorn in the government side. Right. So.
Awesome. Okay. Well then.
So Taylor, among the things that he gives you, is sends you to a recommended place where you can in fact actually rent a boat from this, and so unless there is something else that you guys want to do, we will cut over to you getting your boat.
Before we leave, I am going to make sure. So we don't leave. I assume for an expedition like this, we don't take everything we travel to the location with. So in the hotel room, I'm going to leave some stuff, but I'm going to make sure that I supply up well all the camera supplies that I need. I'm also going to make sure that I take my cartography tools, my cartography supplies.
Sure. Sure.
I'm going to take one extra change of clothes in my bag, and I want to go and procure a machete in town if that's possible, because I currently have a knife but not a machete, and machete, it's a sharpened machete is going to cut through some of the vines better than the gear that I currently have.
Sure. Fair enough. Absolutely.
I'll do that too.
You're planning to get a decent-sized boat.
Okay.
So honestly, everything that you can carry on the plane, you can probably also carry out at least on the boat.
Oh, fantastic! I'll bring everything with me.
Getting it from the boat, when you leave the boat, you probably don't want to carry everything physically on you. But there is no reason to leave. There's no reason to leave everything in the hotel. The boat has at least as much carrying capacity as the plane does.
Awesome, and then worst case, we have a closer hub to retrieve
exactly.
stuff. Sounds
That's
fantastic. I'll bring everything.
Okay. So assuming that you take Taylor's advice, yes, no,
Yes.
for this, as far as like the place to buy?
Yep.
Then in fact he steers you to a gentleman called Ahmed. And Ahmed is the master of a boat called the Fatimata.
The what?
Fatimata.
Fatimata, okay.
Yes, Fatimata. Fatima is a Arab, term for this, and Fatimata is kind of a diminutive for it, right? It's like calling your boat princess or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's and so he has a crew of 3, and will happily take you pretty much, for the amount of money that you are offering, which is way above the local scale for a job like this. He will happily take you into whatever part of the country that you want to go to. His boat is for sale. You get the sense that since he knows Taylor, he probably is an intelligence asset of some sort, but he doesn't actually say that he is. He introduces you to his crew, which is he's got 2 people. He's got Yusuf, who is the cook and the fisherman, and also kind of like the crewman who carries all the heavy items. He's a big, burly guy with a big smile on his face most of the time. And Omar, who takes care of the engines on the boat and does kind of like all of the repairs and that sort of thing. And then Ahmed himself is the captain. And what they have for you is basically about a 40-foot-long tugboat, right? I mean, it's a kind of a converted tugboat that's kind of open on the back. This is not a fast boat, Ruby. You might be a little disappointed at the speed of this thing for it. But what both you and Samang will notice is this is a sturdy boat, right? This is a boat that is designed to haul things much heavier than it is. It will take a great deal for this boat to fall apart on any level, right? It's not really armored, but it's structurally very sound. And you've got, rolls of chains, basically, that can go out the back of the boat, basically, so that you can attach them to a bigger boat. And this boat has the torque, basically, to pull around much larger boats than itself. So it's not built for speed, but it is built for sturdy.
Cool.
And they will meet you the next morning. Before they leave, they are all Muslims and have their, kind of like their morning prayers, basically, in the direction of Mecca, and then they are ready to leave first thing in the morning. Is there anything else you want to get in Freetown before you leave?
Explosives.
One point of note on the payment: half up front, half upon return.
Sure, right. He's fine with that.
I would like to get some explosives, if that's possible, along with additional ammo, as I was mentioning.
Okay.
I got you on that front.
You can probably the explosives you can buy in the city are probably not as good as what Samang can do on his own.
Okay.
If you want to blow something up, you would probably turn to him rather than store-bought dynamite or something like that. He's kind of an expert on that sort of thing.
If he needs supplies for explosives.
But that's my point. He ordinarily carries supplies that can be quickly turned into explosives.
Well, I normally carry ammo, but given where we're going, I'm going to buy some additional ammo just in case.
Sure.
I have one refill right now, so I'm going to buy 2 additional refills.
Okay.
Where do we see the refills?
So pistol Colt, 7 shots plus 1 refill is what mine says. Mine says plus 1 full refill.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm buying 2 additional refills.
Okay. Not a problem.
I guess I don't have any refills.
I'm not. This is
I
not
just
the
see
kind
that
of
I've
game
got
where
a
I'm going to
round
keep
before.
track of like how many bullets you have for it. I mean, like other people can run their games that way, of course. But this is pulpy adventure. You have bullets until it's interesting not to have bullets.
Right, I get that.
So.
But I want to get machete and.
Sure.
Let's
Like
see.
Spider-Man runs out of wet fluid and it's dramatically appropriate that is what
Right.
shooting
Exactly.
for.
Yeah. I will give you warning that you're
Mine-
running out of bullets. That it come to that point, in advance, so you can do something about that. But
My
Now, do
shield-
I have a Sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Do you have a problem with using a gun? Because I'm a doctor. Am I only going to
no,
want to use a
you're
stun
a
gun?
combat medic. You're in the army, dude. So yeah, you've been taught to use a gun.
Yeah, so I'll go with Lala and pick up some actual like firearms because all I got is a stun gun.
Right. Okay.
So I'll take do I have shooting? I got
You have D4, yeah. So
Okay,
you're not
so-
terribly good at it, but
I guess I'll carry whatever rifle I would have used. I'll see if I can get like whatever rifle the British were using at the time. I forget what they used.
sure.
What does TW stand for? I have TW12.
What is TW? Oh, total weight.
Oh, total weight.
That's
Okay.
what the list of things that you're carrying
Mhm.
adds up to that in pounds,
Cool.
and then it should say encumbered. If you're carrying other stuff and go beyond that number, that's when you start getting minuses for carrying too
Yeah,
much stuff.
I'm way, way, way low.
Everybody is, right? Like I said, it's
Yeah.
not a thing that I'm concerned about keeping track of here.
I want to buy a variety of containers.
Okay.
So I'm going to buy a sack. Inside that sack, I'm going to grab a box. I'm going to grab a couple glass jars kind of thing. And just, and have that with me.
Not a
I'm gonna
problem.
bring that.
I'll be right back.
Once again, you have a bunch of this kind of stuff in your
Okay.
just standard
Yeah,
gear, right?
if you don't need us to
I'm
tell you
not
any
gonna-
further, I'll just randomly say, I
If
pull
it's
this
a
out,
full
that's cool.
role-playing thing for you, then absolutely. But most of the time, you can just say, as part of my standard explorer's gear, I have some,
Awesome.
simple jars.
Some
of whatever.
GMs
Yeah, of
say
course
you
do.
didn't buy that in town, didn't tell me. You don't have that. So I just want to
Not-
go, okay, I'll
not
have some
my
other
game.
things. It'll come up when it comes up.
Right. Not my game.
I just want to ask Ahmed if there's anything specific that we're going to need for, getting, surviving upriver or surviving off the river.
Right.
Repellents, things like that.
Say again. Something.
So since he's
things like that. I lost
repellents, or things like that.
I lost the word before things like that.
Repellent.
Oh,
Repellents.
repellents. Yes, absolutely.
Like yellow goop.
Sure.
Like the yellow goop
Right.
that our doctor encountered, but none of us did.
Sure. So do you actually make a point of going to buy some in a store and get what the locals recommend?
I want to ask Ahmed about it. If he's going down
Okay,
river, I'm
sure.
certain that he's got some familiarity.
Absolutely. He has, several, brands of the stuff. He knows that they're heading into a nasty, buggy area for it. And so he's got some sprays. He does not have the Bullum stuff that the doctor saw. And I'm sorry, Tim walked away from the scene here for it. But so if somebody brings it up with him and says, "Hey, how about that Bullum stuff? I saw somebody applying it." His response will be, "Oh, I have better stuff than that." I mean, Bullum works; it's fine, but it's not the best stuff. It's not what I would. It's not the first thing I would use. I've got better things than that.
Okay.
So if he's going to be able to have us covered on stuff, then
Oh yeah, he's got. That's
all
just
that I-
standard gear on his boat, right? Like you don't even need to bring it. He's got a crap
Yeah.
out of it himself.
Okay.
So Tim, Dr. Abbott, they went looking to buy insect repellent.
Okay.
And Ahmed told them that he had much better stuff than Yellow Bullum, and he would not even bother with Yellow Bullum. That's not that good for bugs. He's got much better stuff.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'll do both.
Okay.
Can't hurt.
You
Like
can
if
buy
I-
yellow bullum. You can buy yellow bullum in the store. They have it, right? It's they. You
I'll
know.
buy both. I'll use the yellow bone and the other stuff as well.
Okay.
I'm going to. I want to take
Do you
a
actually
look at
buy
that
the
yellow
fruit,
bullum.
or do you just buy the juice? Do you buy the fruit or just the juice? Because the market will sell you fruit of them if you want.
Both. I got money, so hell with it.
Okay.
If
when
if
you
the
go to the store, when you go to kind of like the fruit shop, they ask you whether you want yellow bullum or red bullum. If you just say bullum to them, they'll tell you we've got two different kinds. So
Yellow.
okay, they will sell you some yellow bullum.
So, with the party discussing this and them telling me about the yellow bullum at this point, I'd like to, at this point, roll a survival, get an idea of the properties. I want to interact with it, taste it, look at it,
Sure.
take some of that juice and put it on my skin. I want to try and figure out the properties of it and why it would be a bug repellent.
Sure.
So, oops, I dropped a die. I have a D8 on survival.
So that would be
Ooh, I rolled
survival
an
for
8.
D8. Okay,
rolled
then
an
spike
8.
it up, roll it again. Sure, I believe you.
4 again.
If you're gonna cheat in this game for it, then don't let me stop you. I'm not.
Well, it's just
If
I
you
got
find
max
cheating
and
fun,
then I got
I
the
don't
max
care.
again. I got a 4, so it's a total of 12.
Okay. So yes, you take a look at this stuff. Bullum is it's a fruit. It's kind of the African jungle equivalent of like a pineapple, right? It grows on a tree. It's got a fruit that has got a very kind of like tough and fibrous outer level, and then inside is a kind of like a softer, I don't know what you call it, the inner parts of it, right? Yeah, it's a pulp thing. You need a knife to actually like cut it open. It is very powerful smelling. You think probably the smell of it is part of what is repellent to bugs. That it's kind of like it's a self-defense thing from it. It is certainly edible. It is definitely an acquired taste.
Okay.
Your first time tasting it, you just kind of are like, a face full of kind of
Durian.
like sour
Yep.
melon. Yeah,
Durian
it's rough, but it is completely edible.
Okay.
It is completely safe. It is not toxic, as far as you can tell. As far as the chemistry of it, you don't really have kind of like the chemistry to
by all
talk
means,
about, but you can totally see how. Yeah, it's clearly like a self-defense thing of the fruit to like keep bugs away from the tree,
Because survival will tell you that the tomatillo has that same pesticide around it because it's got that goop and
exactly,
and it creates a bitter astringent taste, as well as quinoa. You have to wash the quinoa because it has that bitter outer natural pesticide to it.
Right.
So it's a similar. I'm basically looking for those kinds of traits.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right.
Awesome. Then, so I'm ready to go.
If the crew see you like messing around with those, if you're actually like doing that on the boat, both Omar and Ahmed are much more kind of like stringent, stricter Muslims than Yusuf is. Yusuf clearly has some booze on the boat, and suggests to you that like the best way to drink bullum is with bourbon. So you don't want to like eat that straight by itself. And here, kind of offers you a glass of bourbon to like mix it with, basically.
I'll do that. I'll have a try. Do what the locals do.
All right, let's get on this boat and get going.
Yep, I'm ready to go.
So is there anything else you guys need to do with the boat before you leave?
I'm ready to go.
Okay. Like I said, Ahmed is the captain, standing up kind of like at the top. Omar is in the back, checking out the engines and everything. As long as we're traveling, Yusuf decides he's going to do some fishing off the side. And you guys take off, north up the coast.
Okay.
Most of the way, you've got the Atlantic Ocean on your left, basically, and, kind of jungle on your right to take a look at. You pass a few kind of villages on the coast. You see other boats that are out here that are mostly fishing vessels.
Taking lots of pictures, setting up my tripod.
Absolutely. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a stunning, clear, gorgeous day. Out here on the water, it's about 85 degrees. and it is really just lovely. So you travel all morning into the mid-afternoon, and you get to the point where you hit the first of the two big rivers that you had seen on the map, the Greater and Lesser Scarces. The Lower Scarces is the southernmost one, so that's the first one that you hit. And Ahmed is just, so do we take this one? What's the plan? You know, where do you guys want to go from here?
Consult our maps. At this point, it's basically blank, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of the area that you are looking at is between these two rivers, right?
Okay.
So you've got like two that kind of run parallel to each other, and you've hit the southernmost one. So if you turn right, you know, you'll be going along kind of like the bottom of the territory where these reports are coming from.
Well, he should know the area. Beth does at least, and so tell him what our planning, and so where he thinks that we will have best access.
Right. Okay. So you tell him you're looking for Mamlambo.
Yes.
Did you tell him in that process?
In fact, I was going to tell him when he said where to. I was going to yell, I say you take us to wherever people talk most about Mamlambo.
Okay. All three of them have heard of Mamlambo. None of them think he's real, right? So they're kind of like, okay, well, crazy people are going out in the jungle looking for monsters. Okay, whatever.
Well, we're looking for stories about the monsters.
Sure, absolutely.
So wherever they talk most about them.
Yusuf, once again, his answer will be, if you want to find Mamlambo, he'll be at the bottom of this bottle. He's very hard to find otherwise before this, but you can certainly find him in here.
Yeah.
But Ahmed will be, well, then I think we should just turn in here in the Lesser River and, head. If you want to talk to villagers who claim to have seen him, this is where those villages will be along this river.
Okay, that works.
So he travels, he turns right basically into the, into the river off of the ocean. And once you kind of like get through the plain where the water is coming out, you are now headed upriver, right? Like you're fighting the current the whole way there for this, which means the boat slows down. Mm-hmm. As powerful and as sturdy as this boat is, it's not fast. And, with a 12-mile-an-hour current coming against you, it's definitely, laboring to like move up there. Once again, you see, some amazing kind of, like nature stock footage on either side of you up this river, right? There's, crocodiles sunning on the beach, hippos. You will see like a collection of them in a wallow and that sort of thing. And Ahmed will happily chat with you about, kind of all of the interesting nature that you are seeing. You get to kind of the end of the first day. It's the evening now. The sun is starting to go down. On the river, the bugs are much worse than they were on the ocean. And so definitely you are, using this his bug repellent pretty thoroughly to keep them all off of you. And there is a decent-sized village on the north side of the river. Ahmed knows it pretty well. It's called Saidu. And it is, the farther you go up this river, the more kind of away from civilization you're going to be. And so he thinks if you want to talk to people, like the local natives, this may be your last chance for a while. Okay. And since we probably don't want to be traveling at night anyway on this river for this, I suggest that we probably drop anchor and head into that village, get some food, and you can chat with the locals.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
So they have this boat can't land, right? It's going to stay in the river. It's not built so they've got two, smaller rowboats basically that are being carried on the side of it. And so they'll leave, Omar or whoever on the boat, and everybody else can get in the rowboat and basically row to shore. When you row to shore, once again, Ahmed knows several people in the village. He knows where to get some food. It's mostly, kind of like a thatched hut situation. There's probably maybe 500 people live in this place, all wearing, native, clothes for the area. For it, and they will happily, for a surprisingly cheap amount of British pounds, will be delighted to work up a fish fry for you. So,
okay.
They're probably, I imagine that being a village, there's nothing here that qualifies as a shady side of town, or maybe it's a village that's all shady. I'm not sure,
Right.
but I have the streetwise.
You do?
skill
Yep.
And or edge, and so he was gonna, kind of like, enjoy dinner, have a drink, carouse a little bit, and try to get some information specifically about Mamlambo,
Okay.
whether or not streetwise applies.
Absolutely, sure. Well, if that's who you're talking to, then it applies, right? If that's
Yeah.
who you're trying to network with, so
Perfect.
you can use either. You can use persuasion. I'm looking at your skills here for this.
I have persuasion at D4, and I
Right.
have common knowledge at D4 also.
Right. I would say you're trying to get somebody to tell you about Mamlambo, so I'm going to say that's persuasion.
Okay.
And so you have a D4, but you've got a +2 on this roll, so it's a D4 and a D6,
And a D6.
and then it's a +2 on this roll for it.
Yeah. So I rolled a 3 on the D4 plus 2. That's 5.
That's 5. Okay, so that's a success without a raise.
Right.
So you are correct. In fact, as you suggested, it's kind of all the shady side of town here for this. And so they are, you make some friends basically in the corner, with your kind of like awareness of, like the rougher side of town. Nobody that you talk to will admit to having ever seen Mamlambo, right? Every story you get is secondhand. Every story is like, oh, my cousin saw him. Oh, my wife's brother, totally saw him or whatever for this. My grandmother told me stories about him, right? Like, none of them will admit to actually, like, seeing him himself, right? But they all know stories about him. And a lot of those stories are kind of contradictory, right? In some of them, he just lives in the river and he's a fish, right? Or an eel or something like that. Some of them, he's a lizard and he's in the river, and then sometimes he's out, in the jungle, eating fruit off trees and stuff like that, right? I mean, so they all have kind of like different versions, of the story. Finally, after talking to 4 or 5 different people, once they realize that that's kind of what you're looking for, they go get a couple of the older ladies from the village to actually come and talk to you. And one of the women there will sit down with you and say, well, when I was a kid, I did in fact actually see Mamlambo. It was the most terrifying thing I ever saw in my life. He's enormous.
Can you describe the color, shape, size, etc.?
Well,
She totally does.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to kind of, lean into her. He's actually kind of like,
right.
He loves a good story told by an old lady in the village.
Her description is that he's a lizard. He, in fact, does have legs. Over the length of his body, he's got like 3 sets of legs. And the thing she remembers as a kid, first of all, she remembers watching him eat a hippo, which was terrifying, right? Like, hippos are the biggest, scariest things in the jungle. And this guy just came along and, like, in one mouthful, just, like, took one, right? And then she looked at its face, and his face had the most beautiful green eyes. And I was stunned at how beautiful they were. And everybody else was running away, and I stopped. I didn't run because I was so caught up in, like, the beauty of its eyes where it looked at me. And I just stood there. I was a little girl. I just stood there in front of it, and I don't know if he would have eaten me or not. Fortunately, my mother came back and grabbed me, and ran off into the jungle to get away from him for this. But I didn't even try to get away. It was such an amazing, an amazing thing. Maybe I was lucky in that he had just eaten and wasn't hungry. Right? I mean, it's, after eating a hippo, a little girl is just dessert, right? At best. And the crowd kind of like laughs at that, like they like this good story from her, so she'll talk about him, as much as you want, but she doesn't have any evidence of it, right?
Yeah. And where were you living when you were a little girl? Where did you see him?
Oh, this other village, not very far from here. I've lived in this area my whole life, so.
Okay. All right, so he'll, to the best of his ability, kind of like confirm whatever tributary or whatever, if it's still done this,
And once again, her story, I would point out, is 60 years old. Right? She's talking about something that she saw in the 1890s.
Of course. Of course.
So, yeah.
And he will then profusely thank her respectfully and all of that.
absolutely.
and finish off his night before getting back.
The food is amazing. They like cook you up some food. Like I said, for the money that you guys are paying is an enormous like a month's pay for these guys for it. So they're delighted to
I'm method acting then right now.
Excellent. There you go.
No.
Sure.
I'm going to ask around, see if anyone needs any medical assistance.
They
We probably don't get a lot of really good medical care here, so.
Right. Yeah, that's probably true for it. I mean, they're all they've got the local.
I have a doctor. I'm going to try to make sure that somebody
Sure.
gets help they need it.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, you could probably, there are probably some people there who don't have, like the greatest eyesight or teeth or have some, kind of like condition that you could probably help with. So, sure. That will just make you more popular with the crowd, right? I mean, if you're actually, kind of like if you're handing out free medicine or whatever, they'll be so they'll pay you in food, basically, right?
They're actually very accepting of Western medicine.
I think they would be. Well, like I said, they've lived under British rule for 100 and whatever years. So
but
I think
we're
at
in
least,
remote villages, so I'm just wondering. So
yeah, you're not that remote yet. You're going to get a lot more remote than this.
Cool.
You're only a day into the jungle. These people deal with white people all the time. So
right, okay, but I'm going to definitely be observing this, because to me this seems very strange, because this shows a level of acclimation that as someone who as a wilderness guy myself and dealing with small tribes, this is very odd to me.
No, these guys are definitely, they're
on the freeway.
Right, yeah. It's you're physically only 70 miles from Freetown at this point for this. These people, interact with it fairly regularly. So you enjoy dinner. The sun has thoroughly gone down. It's pretty dark outside. You take your boat back to the Fatamata. And are you guys sleeping in shifts, or is everybody going to crash at once? The crew, Ahmed and his crew, will take shifts. Basically.
I would like to take shifts, but something else I am interested in. I want to try and composite a sketch of the creature that the woman described. And I want to pay special attention to features that caught her attention, like the eyes or the tail and such like that. Because you're saying that we have an understanding of science beyond what we should at that time. So, especially of these monsters. Eyes denote the type of environment that they will come out in. So the way that the eyes are will determine if it's a day creature or a night creature, for example. So I want to try and figure out if it's going to be nocturnal or if it's going to be a day creature. I want to, based on some of the body features, figure out if it likes to be deeper into the landmass or to stay relatively close to the coast. Certain tail types, for example, they need to be close to water because the maneuverability. So I'm just basically using the composite of that to put.
Are you going just from her story or from like all of the different stories that you have heard? All of them. Okay. Once again, the problem with that being that several of them are contradictory, right? So it's like many of these things are just going to be wild guesses at this point.
Right, but mostly
But you can certainly set kind of like a baseline of what is collecting what they have.
The most credible bits.
You have more of the described encounters take place at night than during the day, but you have encounters from both.
Okay, and
so
then
you would
colors.
guess, if that's true, that like if he hunts at night and just kind of lazes around in the sun during the day, that sounds plausible. That gives you kind of like a spread, like you were talking about, right? If it's
right, and so that will tell us if it's close. If we want to be looking closer to the shore or deeper inland, and the type of lighting it likes and such like that.
Right.
Also, based on the description,
no stories have him ever being that far away from the river.
Okay.
Right, like he doesn't go up into the mountains.
Because
he does not get away from.
Most lizards need some level of extra moisture to help keep them.
Right. So even the stories that take place in the jungle take place within a couple of miles of the river.
Okay.
So
for the woman that saw its eyes, I'm trying to get basically, since that fascinated her and that's ingrained in her head, I'm going to try and get an idea of the way that the eyes look, because I want to get an idea if there's any photosensitivity to it, because if basically we're in big trouble if flashing my flashlight in front of it will basically give us a moment to get away or anything like that. So
that's just a guess at this point, but sure, yeah.
but get
Certainly
whatever
you
I
can do the work as you're doing it. Right.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, like I said, the three of them will take shifts over the course of the night for it, but it's up to you guys if you all want to sleep the whole night through, or if you want to have people getting up during the night.
We should take watches just in case.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely agree with
Yeah.
that.
I completely agree.
Okay.
And when sleeping, I am keeping my weaponry nearby.
And because
Sure.
it likes to be near the water, I definitely don't want to be caught off guard. So
Right.
By the way,
All right. Well, they're like I said, one of the three crewmen will be awake all the time. Right. They'll trade off every couple of hours, basically through the night. So who is awake first? Who's taking the first shift of being awake? Okay. Just you?
I got it.
Everybody else is okay.
I'll take morning watch.
Okay. So you guys get back to the boat by 10 o'clock at night, and so everybody else kind of crashes and goes to bed. So by 11, it's basically just you and Yusuf are the two people awake on the boat. Everybody else is taking their shift, and you've got I'll wake them up at 1 a.m. or whatever kind of thing. Yusuf, with nothing else to do for the evening, decides to do some fishing. So he kind of, quietly sets up in the back of the boat with, just a rod and reel, basically, and he's going to do some fishing off the back of the boat. He invites you to join him if you want to. He's the only one of the three who drinks, as I said, so he's, got probably a small bottle and some leftovers from dinner, and we'll just kind of sit out in the back and enjoy doing some night fishing.
Okay.
I'm gonna thank him, but I'm gonna keep watch a bit more than just fishing.
Okay. So you get to you're maybe halfway through your 2.5 hour shift of being there for it. Yusuf is moderately successful in bringing a couple of small fish onto the boat, and from where you are, you suddenly see and hear much closer to you than you would have preferred for it. Another boat is coming down the river, is coming downstream past you. It is running completely without lights. It is its engine is muffled in some way to make as little noise as possible. All of the windows on it, all of the ports, windows on it and everything for it, are covered over. So it's running completely dark, and basically it's almost on top of you before you notice that it's there. And Yusuf is the same way. He's just as surprised as you, but how close this boat got before you noticed it, right? Whoever is piloting this boat clearly knows the river very well, right? And is kind of, steering without using any lights for this. However, the fact that you guys are sitting in the middle of the river is new information to him, right? He doesn't see you, even though you've got a couple of lights running, until fairly close. And so they have to kind of steer off to miss you because you're sitting anchored, And so this boat kind of shoots by you, or is in the process of shooting by you, disturbingly close, right? And kind of gives your boat, the wake kind of bounces everybody for this. And it is passing by no more than 15 or 20 feet off your starboard side. So what would you like to do about this? Yusuf kind of gives a startled yelp.
Is it coming up on us? Because
you're asleep right now. Ruby is the one who's out on deck to address it. So you'll be woken up by the splash in a moment here.
Did Brandon freeze?
Brandon's
He's
picture looks good.
he's staticking up a little bit.
Okay.
Brandon's back.
Oh, there you are. All right, so Ruby, what are you doing?
So I want to, let's say I'm right by Aldo. He's who I was looking at the time. And so I'm going to wake him up, but I'm also going to try and keep a good solid eye on the boat to just try and identify anything. I'm kind of thinking this might have something to do with the smugglers that they've been talking about going on the river,
Okay.
lights out and all that. And
All right,
so anything
so
that
you
I might
let
be
it
able
go.
to
You let it
figure out
pass
on
you on the right, basically, right? Or you're not going to try to
Yes.
address the boat at all for us. As it goes by, you see a couple of crew people out on the boat, and they are dressed completely in black. They are wearing nothing, that kind of like gives them away. So once again, you don't see them until they're almost like right on top of you, and then it kind of like shoots past you. At that point, the wake that this boat is going, their boat is much faster than yours, and the wake that it's doing kind of like makes your boat go, up and down, which probably wakes everybody up. This was a pretty quiet river, and then suddenly everybody gets bounced in their beds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So by the time the rest of the crew gets up, including the captain, kind of swearing like, "What the hell was that?" It's like that boat came awful close to us. By the time everybody has kind of like gathered out on the outside to see it, that boat is now well down the river. It is moving with the current, and so it's going way faster. And it's by the time it's a couple hundred yards away, it's so dark, it just disappears.
Okay.
So if that's the smugglers, they're hella good. You start to understand like how it is. Maybe the cops are not so good at finding them.
I'm just glad they didn't stop.
Yep. Well, they're headed to the Atlantic, right? Like the according to, you would have talked to probably to Mansoray or something about this. I mean, they will send a boat out actually into the ocean and meet a boat in the Atlantic Ocean where they will transfer their smuggled they're smuggling diamonds to get them out of the country. So, all right. So this boat has disappeared into the darkness, to the west of you there, and that was a close miss.
I'm sleeping happily.
Hello?
Nope,
I thought he said that we all woke up. Because
I think the weight of that boat coming that close to you would have bounced you.
How late into the watch was that?
It's a little after midnight. So,
I'm not going to go back to sleep after that.
Yeah.
Once I wake up, I can't go back to sleep. I'll take a watch for now.
I get jolted awake. What was that? Or what was that?
Smugglers.
We almost got hit by another boat, and it was running completely dark, no lights.
Well.
I guess I will try and go back to sleep.
Okay.
Good. Yes.
The village is, completely dark. It's, everybody there has gone to sleep. So whoever kind of takes over the next shift, basically, they switch off, and it's Omar's turn to be up himself. So Yusuf goes to bed, with him. And, the evening continues. Omar is not terribly chatty, but will, be polite, I guess, to Samang.
Samang will try talking about the boat, and then he'll start suggesting ways of making the boat look a little faster. And
right. You probably could. I mean,
yeah.
Omar knows this boat, but you're a better engineer than he is. If you wanted to get in and muck around with the engines, you could probably get a couple more extra miles out of this thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, if he can chat him to the point where he would let him, he'd go over there and make his boat better for him.
Oh, okay, sure.
Or try.
Yeah. Once you kind of establish to him that you know what you're talking about, he's probably okay with that. So,
all right, cool.
Yeah, sure. So the two of you are now in the back of the boat looking at the engine.
Yeah.
And talking about things that we could do with this, and you're going to optimize the fuel intake or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And so a couple more hours have now passed, and now it's 3 a.m. And you hear this one coming well in advance, right? Coming up the river. Now, coming the same direction that you were coming, is a boat that is very lit up. It has all of its lights on and then some. In fact, it's got a couple of spotlights mounted in the back that it's kind of sweeping the shore with on either side. It's not moving that fast, and you very quickly recognize that this is one of the police boats that was in the dock, right, for you. And they're coming up the same direction that you are. They're, a few hundred yards away. Coming up the boat, and probably with the size of the lights that they're, shining, they're probably going to wake up the people in the village here pretty quick, shining these big spotlights across their, across their area. And so you see it kind of coming for this. The two of you are just, kind of watching it, who's making all this racket, coming up the river. Yeah. And then suddenly, out of the water next to it comes this enormous black shape, right? And you're really only seeing it in the lights of that boat. But it just kind of like rises up out of the river, much taller than the side of the boat, and then kind of crashes its body across the middle of the boat.
He's gonna yell, "Mamlambo!"
Okay.
For everybody to wake up.
It hits the deck, the center deck of the police boat, and just smashes it, right? Like everything that was on the boat gets crushed under like the weight of this just enormous black dripping body that just kind of like slams across it. Like the head goes into the water on the other side, and the weight of the center of the creature kind of snaps the boat in half. And so the front and back ends of the boats both, kind of like both go up in the air. Spotlights fall over into the water, start shorting out. There's, like sparks are flying everywhere from this. Just kind of like mass destruction. This is, of course, an enormous racket, and everybody else on the boat, wakes up from hearing this just enormous crashing sound just to the, just to the west of you, basically.
Not to mention him screaming Mamlambo.
Yeah, and him yelling Mamlambo, which you can barely hear over all the rest of the noise, but yes.
Well, when I wake up, I turn, one hand goes to the gun that was under my pillow, the other hand goes to the camera that I had hanging around my neck, and I come up and I start trying to shoot pictures.
Okay, sure.
And
it's very dark, but like I said, the boat that it's in the process of destroying is pretty well lit, so at least against that, you get at least several good shots of kind of the middle of the creature, right? Like you're missing the head and the tail, but the middle of it is out of the water and is kind of like pulling the wreckage of this boat down into the river. There are people on the boat who are like falling off on either sides, right? They're hitting the water and kind of, like splashing in all directions.
Yeah.
So you are getting some good shots, at least of the middle of this thing, and also the destruction that it's doing. Both Mateus and Abbott, you get a very strong scent of that yellow bullum kind of coming upstream with that.
Okay. I'm sorry, could you repeat what you just last said? Because I see something coming upstream.
You smell the yellow bullum stuff, right? Like this boat was clearly coated the same way that Dr. Abbott had seen.
Mamlambo likes me.
I get okay.
Yellow bullum.
I'm going to call out for Bill. Bill, where is that bullum? Don't hear you, Tim. Do not hear you. I'm going to.
Do not hear Tim.
Who can't hear who?
I can't hear Tim. Does anybody
I can't hear Tim?
Nope.
I can't hear him either, actually. I didn't realize he was talking.
He needs to adjust.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you
Yep.
now.
Yes.
You muted
There you
yourself.
Okay.
Yay.
Okay.
So, what'd you say?
There's a mute button on the...
Okay.
I said I'll try to find the yellow stuff and the sunny day and try to get it to her.
You've got a sack of it. You bought at the grocery there for it. So
Okay, I'll grab it and run over to Lala.
Okay.
I'm going to grab one of the fruits. I'm going to cut it open down the middles and give it kind of put it on the boat and then just kind of give it a squash so that the liquid starts oozing out. And then I'm going to basically toss it out into the water that way, and I'm to test a theory.
Okay.
To see if it jumps up for it.
Sure. Well, you're too far away to throw for it to catch, right? Like you can't. It's the boat is still 100 yards behind you.
But
you can throw it into the water in that direction. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
And
so while you are doing that, while you're cutting the fruit, there's a policeman kind of bobbing in the river, and you see the head of the creature comes up and then kind of comes down and eats the person in one bite. Right, he just takes him out of the water.
Are we docked at the moment?
You are anchored. You're anchored offshore. You're anchored in kind of the middle of the river.
Well, I'm going to go along the beach and start running towards them because I do want to see if we can save any survivors. But
Are you going to jump in the water?
No,
yeah, like I said, the boat's in the middle of the river.
Yeah.
We're anchored in the middle of the river.
Yes, it's a rowboat to get to shore.
I don't swim.
Well, you don't have athletics.
If you have athletics, you can swim. Yes.
Yeah,
Athletics
let me double
is
check.
brilliant.
I pulled up the wrong character. Nope, I don't have athletics. I was right. Oh no, yes I do.
Yeah, you do.
I do have
Yeah.
athletics. I was.
Do we have life preservers or something similar that we can be tossing people, or lines that we can try and, help people?
You certainly can. Do you want to start the boat and get closer?
Yeah, I want to pull the anchor and start getting closer because I want to try and
All right.
save people.
Ahmed does not want to go closer to the monster. He's standing up there at the like in the captain's rig there for this. And if somebody comes up and says like start the boat, he's like,
Okay.
"Are you crazy? No, I don't want to go anywhere near that thing."
I'll grab a life preserver. I'll jump in the water and I'll start swimming with the rope tied to it.
Okay, this is after you've thrown the fruit
No,
out into the water already. Yes.
Cancel the fact that I've thrown the fruit yet, but because
Okay.
I'm not going to yet.
Got it.
But
Okay, so you
I
are
will
jumping
carry-
into the water.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am going to carry the fruit with me, but I'm not going to cut it open to expose it yet, because I thought it was
Okay.
it was going to be closer than it was. But I will bring the fruit with me, and I'm going to just start
Interesting.
swimming.
Okay. So you head, the direction you're going is with the current, so you can actually like swim pretty fast down there and get towards the water. Is anybody else hitting the water, or is everybody else staying on the boat?
I want to try and convince the captain.
Okay.
And
Persuade
Ahmed.
or intimidate, depending on
Yep.
how you're trying to convince them for it.
Ahmed, if that had happened to us, we would want others to help us. There are people that are still alive in that water. Come on, get the boat moving. You can stay clear, but get us close enough to throw lines. And so I'm gonna try. Okay. I got a 4 on the D6.
All right, that's a powerful argument. So yeah, he's certainly kind of the code of the like a fellow boat in trouble kind of thing for this. He's still not happy about it, right? He's like, you people are crazy, but he hauls up the anchor and starts the boat turning around to kind of like head in that direction. Okay, what about you two? What are you doing?
So, Samang is actually going to start prepping an explosive. We do need to do depth chargers here, basically.
Right. Okay.
He's a little shocked that Ruby jumped in the water, and then he's looking
Ruby
over
didn't
at
jump in the water.
Ruby and Mateus. And
Mateus
he's
jumped in the water.
Ruby trying to come. So he's just going to start prepping a bomb.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and give me a roll on that right now?
Yes.
With your MacGyver, so that would be I guess repair. And you have Mr. Fix-It, so you're at a +2 in doing that.
So D8. And I'm at a +2?
Right, so it's a D8 and a D6, and you're at +2.
Okay. I roll a 7 on the D8, so it's a
All
9.
Right, so that's a total of 9, so that's with a raise.
Perfect.
So with Mr. Fix-It, that means every raise that you get halves the amount of time that it would take to do a thing. So you have, you had your stuff like more or less prepped for something like this, right?
Yeah.
So you're just kind of, like attaching wires to things to, like put
Okay,
them together to chuck. Okay, fair enough.
Perfect.
Dr. Abbott, what are you doing?
I will try to look for survivors, try to throw some lines out to them, see if I can find them.
Right, so you're going to throw ropes off the side, looking for stuff for it. Yusuf and Omar are doing kind of the same thing of getting ready to do that. So you're all heading towards the coast. All right, Mateus, you're like swimming right into this thing, basically, right? So as you are, like coming forward, there are police in the water kind of like all around, like the wreckage of this boat, basically. And the creature, Mamlambo himself, is kind of like draped over the middle of it, right? Like it hasn't quite sank yet, so like the middle of his body is still kind of like being held up by the wreckage of the boat, right? And so his head comes up, and you see this big. It kind of looks almost like a Chinese dragon type, right? I mean, it's got like a long snout with kind of feelers on the end of it, and you see in the light from this boat, for it, like as the spotlights are still kind of swinging crazily around, you see the amazing green eyes of this creature as it's kind of like scanning the water looking for something else to eat. And as you are, kind of like swimming towards it, trying to get to one of the people who's, bobbing in the water, you see that its eyes kind of like fixate on you and its nostrils kind of flare. Like it's smelling something.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do?
Alice?
I am at that point point, once I'm there, I'm going to grab one of the fruits. The fruit that I had. I'm going to cut it open, and I'm going to just basically lob it off to the side to try and basically, give me room to go around.
Right.
Since it's smelling, and so I'm specifically throwing it in a different direction to the direction I'm going. And I'm faking it out, and then I'm going to dive under the water and around and try and basically go and see if I can find any survivor.
Okay.
Remember that I do have a life preserver on that cord that I'm keeping at hand.
Right. So you and the creature are the only people actually in like a combat action scene right now. Right. Everybody else is heading your way on the boat. So this is where we bust out the deck.
Sure thing.
For this. I have, in fact, the deck of cards here for this. So it's basically just for you and the creature.
Okay.
And you get the 5 of spades, and the creature gets the king of spades.
He goes first,
So he is going first. So you have not had a chance to throw the thing yet. You've got like the fruit in your hand, and it definitely kind of like has noticed you and decides to come in.
A bomb to be put in, so I could.
Right. Okay, so it's taking a shot at you.
But I thought of that after. He's like, I'm going to make a bomb. I'm like, oh, shoot. Next one I throw, I need him to vomit.
Right. Okay. It is rolling to hit you. Okay, so you have a parry of 5. That is my target number to hit, right? So instead of a 4, I'm trying to hit a 5 on you. But you are in the water. So you are at a -2 on that, so you're actually a 3 to be hit.
Okay.
Nice knowing.
However, I roll a 2.
Awesome.
Nice.
So he narrowly misses you. Kind of like goes splashing in. In fact, probably he misses you to the side that the fruit is on. Mm-hmm. So as you're kind of, like splashing off to the side, I'm going to say like he gets the fruit, right? Like he gets like close enough to you that's the part that goes into his mouth, as well as probably part of your hand for a moment, and then you kind of like pull your hand like away, leaving the fruit in its mouth, right?
Okay.
And then he keeps splashing, diving past you.
Okay. Does it seem to react when the fruit goes in its mouth, when it tastes it?
Well, I mean, it definitely seems to be what it was aiming for.
Okay.
Right? But beyond that, like, it closes its mouth and then it goes down into the water. So the whole thing, I mean, you're kind of like swimming to the side of its head right now, right? I mean, this creature's 100 feet long, right? So it's, okay, so you take an action here now.
So at the end of the day, Kaiju are still creatures, and so I'm going to go and do a Jurassic Park move instead of what I was planning.
Okay.
I'm going to grab another one of those fruits, and I'm going
I think you only had the one that was with you, right? Because the rest are in his barrel. How many were you carrying?
I was just basically scooping what I could. When I was on the boat, I was just going to use one.
Each of these is like this big.
Okay.
Right, so you've pretty much got one and a knife, basically,
That's fine.
Is what you can carry in your hand.
But I did just feed him a fruit, and so I'm going to basically, at this point, try calming him, animal taming him.
Taming him. Excellent. Yeah. Okay, sure.
Using my survival to just kind of calm him, because he clearly just wants more fruit, and I can, I'll start moving back towards the boat and call out to my friends, throw me the more fruit.
Throw me the whip.
Throw you more fruit. Okay.
Throw me the fruit.
Okay.
And I'm going to try
Throw me the whip and I'll throw you the fruit.
You want the lamp first? Is that what you want?
Right. Yeah.
Throw me the whip and I'll throw you the fruit.
Okay. Before I roll survival, I got a Benny. Bennies give me an additional D4. We start with one Benny, right?
You have 3 bennies. You should start the game with 3 of them for it. And the bennies, basically what you want to do is you pay to re-roll a bad roll.
Okay.
Right. So if you are not happy with your roll, you can pay a benny to re-roll it.
Sure. I'm just trying to figure out if there's anything I can do in addition to this D8.
Well, it's a D8 and a D6 because you're a wild card, so you've got the 2 dice to start out with.
Okay. Well, let's go with this.
Right.
I got an 8 and a 3, so the 8
right,
gets
the 8
additional.
Rerolls. Yeah.
I got a 7 on it.
Okay, that's a 15. All right. Well, that is I was going to say that's a very impressive roll. All right.
Yeah, I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to be spending bennies.
Right. Okay. Well, you get to keep your benny because that's a great roll. So he goes. All right. So you're trying to calm it in some way, right? So you kind of like reach out and like physically touch like the side of its neck at that point, right?
Probably,
like it's, you know,
probably like here as it's going as it's eating, and I kind of probably reach down under the water and start petting it right around here because on lizards that's an area that calms them. They start purring.
Sure.
Lizard
Okay,
purring.
fair.
I've seen
All right.
that. It's weird.
Well, this is very large.
Yeah.
So like reaching all the way down to the bottom of
Yep.
its neck is gonna be kind of tricky. But you at least get to the like to the side of it, holding like by touching the side of its throat or whatever, you definitely feel it swallow the fruit, right? Like it's the muscles, like kind of go as it's like chucking the fruit down there for it, right? And so it will, I mean, that was a crazy good roll. I'm not sure you're going to be able to tame this thing, but at the very least, it's not going to feel like you're a problem, right? So from this, it will seem like you're not what it's, kind of like here for, right? So it will basically, the nicest thing it can do is ignore you at this point, right? Is to kind of, like, it will keep kind of like diving deeper into the river, going past you, and you can kind of like feel and see the whole kind of body, the whole kind of scaly body of this thing moving past you. And it's going to take 8 or 10 seconds for its entire body to shoot past you, right? Because it's very long, right? Going back there.
In the comic book, there's a little thought bubble. Research notes. It apparently is an omnivore.
Yeah, right.
Apparently.
So you're just kind of like bobbing in the water next to it as like, like the waves that it's making as it's going down. All right. By this time now we've got the boat turned around for it. So the boat is now facing the thing, right, for this. So who of the three of you on the boat, what are you guys doing?
I'm gonna move up to the lines and try and get ready to throw things to try and pull some of the officers aboard.
A couple of the police were relatively lucky. They fell off to the side that's closer to the village, right? So they are right now swimming madly towards the beach. There's a couple of others who are kind of more stuck in the wake of the wreckage of the boat as it's kind of like falling into splinters there. They're the ones who really definitely are going to need your help. So it's you kind of like getting ready with a line to throw to them. Samang, are you chucking a bomb? What's your plan here for this?
I'm holding action, waiting to see if this thing. He's only going to chuck a bomb if it comes with mouth agape at us, or something like that, Or if it's like beelining for us, and I think that a shockwave might encourage it to move in a different direction. But he's standing with the bomb, just looking, holding his attention.
Okay.
Waiting to see if we can save these guys.
Right. Okay. Doctor?
Yeah, I'm going to try to get Lala's character out of the water, which is probably going to sink eventually. So I'll throw a rope to her and try to get him back into the water, back out of the water.
I have a life preserver with the rope that, because when you throw those life preservers off boats, they already have the rope.
They're attached to the boat.
I'll pull you in. I'll pull you in then.
I resist.
You sure you want to stay in there?
I call back.
This is the closest you've probably ever been to a kaiju before, right? It's, There
are survivors I need to go we need to find. Get the bola and use it to throw it far away. It is what is luring the creature.
I'll throw fruit. I'll throw fruit as far as I can, but close enough you can smell it to get him away from the boat. Yeah.
In which direction are you throwing the fruit? Are you throwing it at him, or are you throwing it like ahead of him to like make him go further?
Ahead of him, yeah.
Ahead of him. Okay, sure. All right. Okay. So that works out pretty much just fine, right? Like he did what he wanted to do. So his action at this point, like he kind of like starts heading deeper. The body passes by Mateus floating in the water, kind of like the last like flick of the tail probably sends like a wave that pushes you physically away from him, right? As it kind of like dives deeper into just the blackness of the water. By this point, the lights on the police boat are pretty much completely out because they've all been smashed. And so the creature pretty much disappears, right? Like it goes deep, and the last direction you saw it was passing your boat, the Fata Matata, heading upstream, right? And it's moving with considerable speed. So you guys, like bring your boat close to the wreckage, basically, and start throwing lines, do this. Mateus, why don't you give me an athletics roll to see if you can get there's one guy who's kind of like stuck tied up in the wreckage there, and see if you can actually kind of pull him out. Okay, so that works just enough. I mean, you have to do some kind of scrambling and like pull. He's tied up in some ropes or something, so you have to like pull them off of him. But you get him out. The police boat pretty much sinks. It's two parts of it, but you get everybody either to the shore or onto your boat, and the creature is gone. It's gone upstream.
Okay.
By this point, you have made such a racket that everybody from the village is awake and have come out to the beach and, to see what has happened. Of course, they all miss seeing the creature, right? But they see this, like the wood and equipment and shit, like whatever still floats from the boat, from the police boat, is just kind of like floating there in the river around them. And they're helping the police get up out of the water, the ones who made it to the beach or, getting blankets put on them and everything, so...
Okay.
So except for one guy who got eaten, it seems that like the rest of the crew on the police boat pretty much survived. So there's like 5 survivors.
Okay. When I get back on the boat, I immediately check the condition of my camera because I forgot to take it off my neck. Because as I said, I took a bunch of snaps and then I jumped into action. So and so I'm just going to make sure that my camera's safe right now. Make sure.
I'm going to say your awesome 1950s Explorer camera is probably waterproof, so I think it's,
okay, cool.
I think it's okay. I think it's probably one of the first things they invent for it, right?
Good.
I was gonna kill you. You barely survived that, and you didn't take any. You ruined your camera. I was like, oh no.
And when I get back to the boat, I will say, when we get back to Freetown, we should inform them to stop using Bolum on all police vehicles. The creature specifically is drawn to the smell of Bolum.
Who do you say that to?
Everyone on the boat.
Okay, including like the police who you rescued out of the water.
Yeah,
they're like, what the hell are you talking about? We don't use Bolum on our boats.
What is that sickly sweet smell? Like the fruit that I. Wait, what do you mean you don't use Bolum on the fruit on your boat?
Somebody's doing that.
Yeah.
Doctor, didn't you say that there was someone spraying the boat with Bolum for the boat?
Who was spraying our boat?
I look at Bill.
They'll ask the doctor, like, what are you talking about?
My God! I think I figured out what's going on here. Yeah,
they have literally no idea what you're talking about.
Somebody's been used. Somebody. I think you need to arrest somebody. When I first got here to your town, I saw a man spraying something on your ship. Said he had a contract with you, with the police, and that the Bolum juice was used to keep mosquitoes off.
Bolum juice isn't that good. We have better bug repellent than that.
Somebody's been spicing up your ship for dinner. I bet the smugglers don't use that. So I think somebody's been using a monster to give trouble to you guys, so you don't catch it. Somebody's in league with your smugglers. We saw smugglers on the way.
Nancy already told you they've lost 2 other boats up here. Just in the last.
You need to arrest somebody.
Tell us who. We'll arrest them absolutely.
I'll tell them who he is. I tell them the name and it's just the description of the guy.
Okay, they don't know that guy, so
not surprised.
And I also tell them about we saw the smuggling ship headed out to the ocean. It was running no lights and it was black and everything, and it almost ran into us.
It should have passed them, right? I mean, like it was going out to the water and they're coming in, right? But there are certainly plenty of places, like along the sides of the river, all the little tributaries, like I said, that kind of flow into the big river.
Yeah.
It'd be very easy for the smuggler boat to like avoid them, especially since they make such a racket coming up the river, right? I mean, it's like the smugglers can see them coming a mile away with all of the lights and everything that they have. So if you tell them that like a smuggler boat like passed, like was going the same direction, they'll be like, well, we didn't see that either.
Yeah, but I think somebody's been priming your boat for the market. This thing's been. I think that they know about this, and that's why that monster's been attacking you.
Yes,
It does appear to be. It doesn't appear
I mean,
to be
it's,
vicious.
I didn't believe in monsters until I just saw this one, right? It's they're still kind of like processing the fact that their boat just got destroyed by a monster, right? So they're just like that somebody sent that monster after us. That's terrible. That's insane. How would you? Who even does? That's just crazy.
So how
It's a different world, okay?
Right?
How big do we
It's a
think
different
that guy
world now.
was?
You would guess, considering the amount of time it took to swim past Mateus, probably 100 to 150 feet long.
Do I have the ability to I don't know what kind of mobile tech I have to develop the pictures on the boat? If I can set up a mobile tent, mobile developing tent and such whatnot.
I should think so. Okay. Sure, yeah.
Great.
Probably.
I'm going to develop the pictures at this
Okay.
point so we can, get a good shot as the lights of the boat are coming apart and stopping because it was brightly lit, and all of a sudden
Right.
the lights start breaking apart and shines in different angles. So it should come up with some cool shots
Sure.
as it slowly goes
Like I said,
down.
it's a fairly clear night. With there's stars, but there's no moon.
Mm-hmm.
And by now, I mean it's 3:34 in the morning when you guys have kind of gotten back to the boat or and collected all the police and everything for this. You leave the police with the townspeople, right? Like this town, they respect the police here for this at least, right? They're still part of civilization here. And so if you just head back and kind of like set up a small kind of like darkroom space on the Fatimata, then there'll be you can develop. You get, like I said, you get a lot of good shots of the central body of the creature, right? With it kind of like draped over the middle of the boat. Unfortunately, most of the time that you were taking pictures, its head and tail were in the water, and so you don't have you get maybe one decent shot of the head.
Okay.
But you were mostly swimming when its head was up. Right?
That's fine. I get that. Brandon made a joke. You're not meant to be you're not meant to play photographers. You jump into action too fast. So,
Hey, team.
what was
Are
that
we?
on?
Is this mission accomplished?
I do not think
We were told to come and see if this thing was real. Well, I vote it is.
I voted.
And
I touched
and-
it.
We have pictures.
we have pictures. And we also have we basically solved the mystery of the smugglers for at least their MO for Taylor, so we even solved that.
So you certainly have
one
problem.
You would be at the point where if you went home now, you would at least have something to kind of present, right?
Right.
Ideally,
But-
you would love to get tissue sample or something like that.
Mhm.
You would want to know more about its habitat, that kind of thing. As far as the basic question of is this real, you've pretty much got 10 people who will say yes, this is real. We just saw it.
Yeah.
It almost ate it ate our boat and killed the guy, right? So I mean, you have
But for
the basic
scientific-
question has
yeah.
been answered. As explorers, I don't think you're satisfied, right?
No,
with the,
in fact, while we're in town, I am going to specifically be asking where, deeper in the jungle, what kind of environment would more bullum fruit grow?
So do you want to go back to town now, or
No,
are you
no, no,
heading
in
upriver to?
In the town when we're
the
leaving, where
village.
we're leaving the cops.
Oh, in the village
Mhm,
inside
village.
it for it. Okay. Well, bullum fruit is it's not that common, right? But the trees do grow, kind of in the deep, thick area of the of the jungle, right? They're certainly out there, but they're just kind of the trees are mixed in with other kinds. There's bananas and all kind of other stuff that actually grows in here. It's honestly, we don't, it grows wild, right? We don't ordinarily encourage it because we don't have that much use for it. Not many people like to eat it. And though when we were, primitive, older people did use it for bug repellent. Now that we have much better repellent, nobody really uses it for that anymore, right? That's a very kind of old fashioned solution. So nobody really goes out of their way to grow bullum. So it's just kind of what's out there in the wild.
But
All right.
okay, cool. But do we know if it likes to basically, grow near water or on drier land?
It grows on wet land.
Wetland.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's wetlands,
So
definitely. Yeah.
closer to the river. Cool.
Right, exactly the kind of land that's between these two rivers, right? I mean, you've got like two massive rivers that are only a few miles apart, so it's.
I believe if we set up near copses of the bolum trees, we could find the creature coming to feed. I could rig my camera so that we get a couple shots if we stake areas out.
Hey,
Sun's coming up.
If I were smugglers interested in using this stuff to routinely attack police vessels, I'd have a grove of it somewhere.
I think that would be. That's very true. Or have somewhere that they harvest from regularly.
Yeah.
Then let us go find that.
All right. Well, Ahmed and his crew have, certainly had the stuffing scared out of them, and are not, if the question is like, are we still that we're heading after that thing now, having seen like the direction that it went? If we're still going upstream, our rate just doubled.
That is
no
fine.
problem.
We'll pay.
Once again, to
The
you guys,
explorers-
I'll pay
like
you. We'll
the
pay you
explorers.
triple.
The explorers are just like, we'll write a check. Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
write a check. We'll
Right?
pay you triple. Not that we're off.
So, right, okay. So once again, having seen the amount of money that you guys are willing to throw around for this, they're like, it's okay, sure. So they will, pull up the anchor and start the boat heading back upstream.
Okay.
So you travel for another day or two with no particularly, with no encounters with the creature. You don't see anything for it. And as you're traveling east, like the river itself is kind of like getting smaller, right? Because all of the tributaries, as you're traveling upstream, the tributaries are behind you, right? That kind of like swell the river. So like as you go towards the mountains, you can see the mountains ahead of you. The river itself is kind of like narrowing. There's just less water going through it. And it's also getting a little rockier. There are several kind of like oxbows that come off of it, right? And so Ahmed says, with your permission, in order to avoid the most kind of rocky areas, I'm going to kind of like go off river onto one of the tributaries and then come back around and get back on it so that we can like miss the nasty rapids where the, where the rocks and everything are. I assume that is okay with you, that you don't need to stay on the river the whole time. So you've done that a couple of times already now, and it's now like 2 days later. You've gotten kind of, used to the area for this. The bugs don't really bother you that much anymore. The heat doesn't really bother you that much anymore. And you definitely can feel the land's going uphill.
While we're doing this, I definitely want to be watching the banks of the river to see if, a fairly large lizard-like, creature might have, pulled itself up onto the bank and such like that.
Sure, right, okay. It does. You don't see any sign of that, but I'm aware that you're paying attention for it, right? So about 2 days, in for this, Ahmed has taken you off on one of kind of like the oxbows again. So the water is much calmer where you are, right? It's kind of like curved off of the river and then kind of rejoins it. And the water that's here is moving, but it's mostly kind of stagnant, right? It's mostly quiet on this. And so he's kind of like cruising along on this. And you see up ahead at kind of the corner of this this oxbow for it, several hippos have gathered at the shore to come down and drink the fresh water, right? To get some water for this. And so there's like 6 or 8 of them, including a couple of babies that are there. And so Ahmed is kind of, so we're going to be careful. We're going to, cut the engines and go quietly and just go past them. You don't mess with the hippo. The hippo doesn't mess with you. I'm
hippos are dangerous.
Hippos are the most dangerous animal out here, right? So we're just going to cruise past it quietly. And it occurs to you, particularly Mateus, right? They've got a lot of space here. There's a whole kind of section of beach that they could be on, and they're all kind of crammed into one corner of it. And so you look over at the other side of the beach for this to see what it is that they're all kind of like staying away from. Mm-hmm. And there is a hunk of rocks kind of like sticking up out of the water. And what you had thought was a bigger black rock on top of it, you see that it's the massive body of the center, once again, of the creature, of Mamlambo, right? His head's in the water, and his tail is in the water, and his body is kind of stretched out over these rocks, so his belly can get like nice and warm in the sun.
Take pictures.
Yeah, I think it's
this midday, right?
Yeah, so it's a Kodak. It's a Kodak moment right
He's
now.
completely
I'm gonna jump
relaxed.
on that one, guys.
He's just chilling out. Once again, you can't. His head and tail are underwater.
Right.
He's not paying attention to anything. He's just enjoying the sun. Warming his belly and just kind of taking a nap there. All of the hippos are very aware of him. Right? They're all kind of like crowded off in the corner, ready to break at any moment should he wake up and decide that he's hungry. Right?
I guess hippos aren't the most dangerous creature out here anymore.
Maybe not. So as you kind of, are cutting engines and just kind of like gliding past this, it's like the guy you're looking for, he's right there. You're passing him right now. Do you want him to stop? What do you want him to do? He's like, I'm going to keep going if,
Well, I'm taking pictures. I'm going to let the other just decide whether we're stopping right here or not.
Okay. Well, you've got gorgeous
we're
pictures
also,
of this.
As we're maneuvering by, I'm getting different shots and different angles.
Absolutely. So in the middle of his body, you're getting a decent shot of like his legs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so his legs are surprisingly long, considering that he's built kind of like a snake, right? He's built low to the ground, but his legs come up from the body like a spider's legs, right? Like they go up and then have a joint at the knee and then kind of like come back down.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the time when he walks, you figure out that he kind of rides low, right? Like his legs, kind of like carry the body pretty low. But if he decides to straighten his legs, he can lift his body 40 or 50 feet in the air, right? Which is plenty to eat fruit off of trees, for example, right? Like he's taller than most of the trees here, whereas if he wants to be. Most of the time, he carries his body very kind of like low to the ground, but not actually touching the ground, which is why you don't have like any kind of like great shots of tracking him, right? Because he doesn't actually slither like a snake. His belly never actually touches the ground. He's just kind of like hangs between his legs,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool.
So he's hanging out there. What do you want to do with him?
Is there a way to glide past? He's talking to Ahmed and kind of steer us somewhere kind of hidden, but where we can still see and just kind of observe him?
Well, up on the north or on the east end of this oxbow, where we get back to the river, there is a small village. We could, kind of like park there, and you could come back by land if you want to, or you could come back by rowboat if you wanted to. I don't want to get this boat that close to him. We can't maneuver that fast. If he decided to get mad, he could, he'd hit this boat pretty fast.
What do you all think?
Well, I mean, the whole thing was to find out if this thing existed. We've taken plenty of pictures.
Tissue sample was another one of the things that we want.
Yeah, our job isn't just to figure out it exists. Our job, we are cryptozoologists. We want tissue samples. We want to learn about its habitat. Basically, think about anyone who's a zoologist and everything they want to learn about a normal animal. We do that with monsters. So we want to
Dr. Abbott, you don't even know if this guy's poisonous.
The only reason I suggested otherwise at first is because we were told also that there were backup teams that would come in and do some of the heavier work after we kind of pointed the way. But
Sure.
he's totally comfortable with doing a more thorough.
If you want to give somebody else the credit for whatever.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, you don't want that either.
Yeah.
Well, and also here we've got people who are using this,
Yes.
for their own ends, and our backup team is months out. It's that they're going to organize a big effort and such, and so in half a year.
So the question here is, do we think the best way of doing what we need to do is to stop at the nearby village and come back on foot, or to do something else?
I think we should go and find some sources of the fruit it likes so much and utilize it to try and make it docile and allow us to do the work we need.
Maybe the villagers would know where the smugglers are hiding, and maybe we can find whatever source they have. Because I'm telling you, they have something where they're harvesting this and using it. The villagers are the best chance of getting some human intelligence on what else is out here.
And yet we have already done better than TV. We have already found evidence of this. Sci-Fi did a show for Destination Truth where they actually tried to go and find evidence of this creature, and they
Sure.
failed. So I was like, we did better than they did.
All right. Well, we want to get close to that big behemoth and take us and scrape some take a scale sample and not get eaten.
If we
You
need
know,
to
you
get some
probably get
fruit first. Fruit
once
first.
it leaves that rock. You
Oh,
can
I
find
got an
it.
idea. Is it awake? Or is it sleeping?
Right now, it
We
looks
don't
like
know.
it's sleeping, but its head is underwater, so you're not sure. It certainly is not moving very fast. I mean, like I said, it's lying with its belly out in the sun, kind of thing, right now. So
Let me take. I'm a doctor. I know poisons and stuff. Maybe I'll put together a sedative. Take one of these fruits that he likes to eat so much of.
that would be a hell of a sedative for a creature this big, but sure.
I can try.
It's sure you certainly can. I'm not stopping you. I'm just letting you know. You would, sedatives work against the health, like role of this thing, and 150 feet long. This has got a lot of health. So
Okay.
Hey guys,
so
I don't
maybe
mean to
that would
argue
work.
with you all. By the way, he has an argumentative.
sure, right?
I don't mean to argue with you all, but he'll probably leave some tissue samples on that rock when he kind of like leaves. So maybe that would be a safer way of going about.
I think so, but I agree because it will be it will scrape some scales and skin. But my concern is that we still do need to find possibly a way to analyze its mouth and get an idea more of its head. So it seems finding this fruit is step one. So finding
do we go to the-
smugglers and fruit grove. Step one.
Right. So do we want to go to that village that's up ahead for it? Because that's
I would agree with our friend Samang. Your argumentative nature does not work so well when people start agreeing with you.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll
So-
have.
So Ahmed says, go back to the river, continue along the oxbow, get back to the river, get to this next village for this, and then you can come back. I mean, you can literally walk back from there, right? I mean, it'll only be like a mile walk back to where this creature is right now, assuming it stays there.
Since we've gotten a good look at him, is the body more reptilian or more ichthyoid with obvious scales that are separate, or is it just
you
kind
would
of the
say
rough eye?
reptilian, though it's not a perfect match of either. Like
Okay.
most kaiju, he's kind of a blend of a lot of different things there. So
A hybrid between fish, lizard, and snake.
right. Do you guys watch kaiju movies? Do you know what Mando looks like?
Yes.
Or he's kind of like Manda, right? Like he's clearly got like a Chinese dragon kind of like look to him a bit.
Oh, okay.
Which I kind of got the sense of when you said that he had that Chinese dragon with the coming off. Yeah. Okay.
This is definitely our version of it. Most of the kaiju in this book are like kind of vaguely based, or at least close, so that you can approximate. We don't have the rights to any of these guys, but we can at least make something that looks sort of like them. So
Well, it's not like you need rights to Mamlambo. It's it's
exactly right,
common world myth.
right,
It's like saying you have to get rights to write about a Yeti. You don't.
right. But I would need rights to. I would need rights to actually put Manda in my book. Is my point. So
Manda is different.
yeah.
All right.
So you continue, like past this thing, taking a million pictures, of like every, watching him for that, and kind of, curve back around the oxbow back to like joining, like the river.
Mm-hmm.
The village that Ahmed is talking about seems to be barely a village, right? There's only like 4 or 5 buildings there. It's definitely much smaller than Saidu when you went there before, right? You can't imagine that very many people live here.
Mm-hmm.
You see a couple of children who are, kind of like crouched outside one of the shacks there for it, who are playing. They've got, like sticks and they're sword fighting. There's one woman who is hanging some, fairly ratty looking clothes on a line. And there is a guy standing on the beach who has, heard your boat coming, kind of thing, clearly, and is standing on the beach with a very impressive-looking Russian-made machine gun. He's wearing, shorts and a, shirt, basically, and is just kind of staring at you guys as the Fatamata comes back out onto the river, wondering what you're up to. And he's got, the only kind of like piece of modern, like technology there is the gun currently around his, over his shoulder. So, and Ahmed kind of like looks back at you guys. Is like, I don't know this guy. What do you want to do? Do we?
And this is as we get back to the river.
This is you are now back on the river at the village that he said was beyond this oxbow.
Yeah.
What is he doing?
I take pictures.
There's a guy with a gun. So
Does
the guy with
the
the gun
gun
doing?
look from a distance? Does the gun look like it's like new and well maintained?
it's not. It's certainly. Well, it's probably not new. It is of a design that's within the last 10 years, so it can't be that old.
Okay.
And from this distance, the guy looks like he knows what he's doing with it. So maintenance, hard to tell.
Okay.
He
Wow.
carries it very casually.
While Alice is taking pictures, I'm going to get low and get my gun ready for, return
Okay.
fire if things turn that way.
Sure. He does not have hand on the trigger or anything for this, right? Like
Hello.
he's not preparing to.
He's gonna wave.
You have to fan waves to him. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. He kind of looks a little puzzled at first, and then kind of raises one hand and does that.
Do you mind if we get closer? He said it's okay, Ahmed. Take us there.
He's standing there. Ahmed can only get so close to the shore, and then you have to get the rowboat, right?
The rowboat. Yeah, so he'll start going to the rowboat.
Okay.
Which one of you is going to take her on the rowboat? He'll ask our crew.
They're they're all kind of looking at you, and Yusuf is like, I'll row if
That works. I'm not a great rower, so I appreciate
Sure.
it.
He's the biggest, of
Yeah.
them, right? So he'll go.
Let's go.
Who
Let's
else
go.
is going?
I'll go.
I
I'm
want to go.
always curious.
Right? Okay.
I'll stay with the boat just in case.
You're staying in the boat. Okay. Is Ruby staying in the boat or?
How good of a shot do I think I'd have from here if things go bad for them?
You are you'd be at long distance, but you are
Okay.
a marksman, so you can get, you can take off some of those minuses for distance.
I'll go with them.
The shot would be clear, certainly. There's nothing to hide behind here.
I will go with them.
Okay. So basically everybody but Abbott. Abbott will stay with Ahmed and Omar back on the...
Now I better go with him just in case something does happen. I need to be there.
Okay.
So I'll go. Let's
all
not
the
split up the
PCs
party.
get the... There we go. All the
Number
PCs.
one rule of RPGs: never split up the party.
Fair enough. Okay.
So don't worry.
So you row, towards the shore. Guy with the gun, once he sees that that's what you're doing for this, are you bringing your rifle, Ruby?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. He kind of...
bomb I made earlier too.
Yeah, you see him note that, right? That doesn't seem to really scare him, but he's watching you as the one with the gun, right?
My Betsy and Ruby are on me as well.
Okay.
You said they're easily concealed, so he wouldn't.
They are
necessarily-
concealable if you want them to be, right?
Yeah, I'll just pull
So-
my jacket over, I'll move my clothes around for it.
Okay, sure. He kind of, when seeing that you're coming, kind of shouts back towards one of the shacks, and another guy sticks his head out from the shack to see what's going on. He hasn't left the shack or anything for it. He stays in the doorway, basically just sticking his head out. As your, rowboat comes up to the beach, the guy with the gun just kind of casually walks up to you and starts speaking in Susu, which none of you actually speak.
Nope.
To start out with. So, how do you respond, and in what language?
I'll try
Yeah, I think-
Portuguese.
Portuguese. I don't think anybody here has spoken any Portuguese for it. He does not understand that.
Okay.
Yeah, I figured this might be a problem. I don't suppose you
I'll
speak English.
I will try French.
Okay. He does, in fact, speak some French. His French is not great, but you can certainly make yourself understood.
Mine's not the best either.
Yeah, he's got a D4 in French, so he...
I'll try
Oh, I speak
German.
French, too.
What's that?
He
I'll try
has,
German.
Fam, I didn't think he did. Fam has D4 in French too.
Okay.
And I'll try
Well,
Spanish.
so all three of you can speak to it. He doesn't speak any Spanish.
Okay.
But you can kind of make yourselves understood in French. All three of your accents are terrible and
Yep.
everything, but you can kind of...
I have D8 in French,
So
so I'm pretty good at that.
I have no French.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So, DA, you can speak fabulous French. He says, it's like, what are you doing here? What do you want?
The big monster, the big creature there, we're here to study it.
He kind of laughs where it says, you study animals? Okay.
Listen,
We're zoologists. We study animal life. In this case, the kind of animal life that's appeared since after World War II.
Cryptozoologist. Because we
Right.
study kaijus.
We're cryptozoologists, and
Okay.
we're here to study and know everything we can about the creature.
Okay. He kind of, gestures at Ruby and her rifle. She's like, you don't hurt it.
No, of course not. Oh, I'm sorry, my manners. My name is Dr. William Abbott. My
He
friends
doesn't
here are
care.
Pam Samang.
Yeah. He still doesn't care. He's still staring at Ruby and her gun.
The woman that Ruby Sullivan is the lady you're staring at, and Matthias Souza.
hey, so
No,
you
we
know
have no
animals.
intention of hurting the animal or doing anything bad to it.
It's for protection. Our protection.
Yeah, it's not
Right.
safe here, and often the more dangerous animals are the most dangerous animals around here are the ones that walk on two legs.
So you know the animal we're talking about, right? You know Mamlambo?
I know Mamlambo. Yes.
You seen Mamlambo?
I have seen him, yes.
Okay, good. So it's common around here then.
Common. He, Mamlambo is this is his land.
Hmm.
We just live here. It's his land.
What about Bullum,
What about it?
the fruit? Do you know?
His face definitely gets a little suspicious when you bring that up, right? He kind of looks. He's like, "Why do you want to know?"
Is anyone translating for me, by the way? The person who clearly does not understand this language you guys are speaking. If not, that's
Yeah,
fine.
I'll translate for
No.
her. I got DA
Sure.
in both, so I'll translate for her.
Okay.
We heard that there might be some people nearby who are harvesting some Bullum in the area.
Why? You like it? You like the food?
I will show him. I like very much.
Do
I'll
you like
act
to eat
like
it?
I'm.
Right?
By the way, as he's suspicious by nature too. So as he is saying all this, he's kind of like trying to read the guy, looking right into. You get the sense
Sure.
this guy's in on whatever the smugglers are doing or whatever.
He is definitely being cagey, right? Like he's not answering straight questions.
I'll ask.
Yeah.
I'll
whereas
ask
he,
if it's related. That I heard wild Bullum fruit is the best, and I want more to taste, more to eat of it.
I have some. I sell it to you.
Is it wild?
Yeah.
I wish to pick it.
Who else is buying Bullum from
Oh
you?
no, I don't have. Well, there's trees here for it, but you have to go out in the woods for that.
Who else is buying Bullum from you?
Hmm?
Who else is
Not-
buying Bullum from you?
Not very many for it, but every so
narrow
often.
it down.
uh,
It's not very
if
many.
you- No, not very many people buy it for it. That's we don't get many boats full of crazy white people asking for it here. This is not.
And I gesture. We pay
But
you.
I have some, and if you want some,
crazy white person.
I will sell it to you. Yes.
Well, we
What's
pay you
that?
to show us where it
I said,
grows.
you watch who you're calling a crazy white person. I'm Cambodian.
Yeah, fair, right?
I apologize for interrupting you, Aldo.
That's okay.
I make the gesture of a universal payment. We
Sure,
pay
right.
you to guide us to where trees grow,
No,
as they translate.
no.
Pay you much money? I start pulling out money.
I sell you some of what I have here, but I cannot. I'm not your guide. No.
Do you know
And
of a
this
guy?
that you do not this land this way. This is how do you say private property. You cannot go there.
Whose private property?
That's private.
Well, but who owns it?
He clearly knows. He's just not telling you. So yes.
I see.
It's private property. You cannot go. If you want to buy some fruit, I sell you some fruit. I have some. I have a basket of it over there. Your money is good here for it. I will buy you. I will sell you fruit, but you cannot go. This forest is private.
I'll buy the whole
Well,
basket.
listen,
You cannot go profit.
we don't want to break any laws or anything here. So can you tell me exactly what part is private?
All of it. All private.
So if we continue down the river, we would go into that area?
You continue down the river to the mountains. That's fine. That's not private. Then you run into then you hit the mines that way for it. That's different profit. Different private.
I go by the entire basket.
His entire basket. Okay, he has literally 2 baskets, like sitting by the sides of one of the one of the shacks outside. One is entirely full of yellow bullum. One is entirely full of red bullum. They're very carefully separated from each other.
Yeah, I want
to
buy
both of them. Okay. He charges you a preposterous amount, once again, to them for this. If at market it would cost like 1/10 of this, right? But he will charge you, like 10 times what you know is the market rate, and will happily sell you both baskets.
I didn't get a chance to try the red earlier, so I'm going to load them onto the boat, and as I'm doing so, in case I end up screenching an astringent, sour face or something, I'm going to be tasting it while facing away from him towards the boat.
Okay,
so I want to taste and test the red too.
So you're putting them in the baskets in the rowboat while it's on the beach there.
And I'm going to leave my party to continue talking to him.
Okay, so he kind of walks along with you. And as we're working this deal, right, that gives a small amount of time where he's not watching the other 3 of you. So what are you guys doing while Mateus is distracting this guy?
I want to saunter to the other building and look inside.
Okay. The first building that you kind of just sort of stick your head in, that doesn't have the guy in the doorway, right? You're going to one of the ones that around the side there.
Oh, because is the other guy still looking out the doorway?
He's now watching. He's watching his guy talk to Mateus, and he is, kind of trying to keep an eye on Ruby with her gun, right? That's the one they seem to be concerned about.
Okay. All right.
So, you kind of you slip off to the side there a bit and just kind of stick your head in to look at, what's in this other building.
Yeah.
It's, like I said, it's a shack, right? There are 4 old women in there who are repairing clothes, right? They're sewing, clothes and just kind of chatting each other. They've got a fan that's on the table because it's really hot and buggy here for it. They've got a little kind of penned off area on the floor where there are 2 toddlers that they're clearly kind of keeping an eye on for it, who are just, lying there being toddlers, not really doing anything. Mm-hmm. And so you just kind of see them. They look up, when you come in for this, and look kind of puzzled at you. They don't get a lot of strangers, in this area. And then you see on a table sitting next to them, there is another gun, another machine gun, and there is a leather sack with a drawstring that has kind of fallen over, and there are uncut diamonds just kind of lying out on the table, just in, on the table. You're not really sure what diamonds are worth, but that's got to be thousands of dollars of diamonds, in that sack there. And these women are just sitting there in abject poverty next to, more money than they will ever see in their lives, and don't seem to be paying any attention to it whatsoever.
Okay.
I don't know what it's worth.
He'll kind of give oh, I'm sorry, and kind of back out.
They're, oh, he's polite. That's nice. Okay, and then they go back to their sewing,
Okay. All right. If there's another building that he can check out on his way back, he will.
As you're coming back around to kind of rejoin the group, you see that there is leading out from behind this village, right? Going deeper into the jungle. There's a pretty clear path, right? It's somebody has gone back and forth here a lot. It's not, professionally cleared with equipment or anything like that for it, but it's clearly a walking path that has been there for a while that just heads, from the buildings deeper into the jungle. Okay.
He'll come back at that point.
All right. So Mateus, he's finished his deal with you. He's sold you these 2 barrels for, $50. It's an outrageous amount of money, and he seems completely delighted with himself, right? He's I sold you this worthless fruit, and now I'm rich. I'm going to buy something cool. I'm not going to tell anybody about this money. I'm just going to stick this here in my pocket. And so he's ready for you guys to leave, right? As far as he's concerned, he has completely bamboozled you out of money for worthless fruit.
Well, they're Aldo's going off and inspecting. He's with them at the boat. I continue keeping my eye on the two of them and just try and make certain that nobody else is coming up on us.
Sure.
From a different area.
The first guy, the guy that you met who did this deal with it, is just got British pound signs in his eyes now, right? Like he is completely stopped paying attention in exchange for I'm getting rich off of this. The other guy is still kind of paying attention, keeping an eye on all of you from the doorway. He does not seem quite as greedy as this first guy. So he's at least kind of watching and making sure he sees where each of you are. But the first guy, seems very relaxed around you now because he's already taken your money. Now he's ready to just hustle you back in the boat and get rid of you. So,
all right, I think we got what we came for, right? You look at Matthias.
I nod.
All right. Thanks. He'll say to the guy.
Okay.
Come by anytime you run out of fruit. I always have fruit here.
Let's go back to the boat.
Okay.
Once we're back at the boat.
Yusuf rows you back to the boat?
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah.
Once we're back, back on the boat, do you think any of you are good at sneaking in at night to this private property they speak of?
Yeah, I think we should. There's a pretty clear path that leads into the jungle just behind the buildings. That's exactly what I think we should do.
Did you get good opportunity to see what they were doing? Are these the smugglers?
They had a bunch of uncut diamonds in one of those shacks there with some old ladies watching some toddlers. And there was another gun in there, too. So, I don't know what the exact deal is, but they've got something going on, obviously.
Having been up there, what's my thoughts on the guns that they had versus the area? Just that, these are just likely the diamond smugglers, and that's kind of their...
There is no reason in the world for any of the natives to have guns like this, right? Some of them might individually have guns for it. Nobody's got a machine gun out here. That's just,
Hey, it could be smugglers. It could actually be the commies in here trying to use the local traditions to scare us away, all subtle and so they can get their hands on Mamlambo. So that's what I've been thinking ever since we got here. But who knows? I might just be paranoid.
That's a different theory.
Other than the barrels, how strong was the smell of Bullum?
Well, none of them were cut, so it wasn't terribly strong, but it was
okay. So it's not
noticeable.
like one of those pungent fruits that if you're out in the jungle and they grow there, that you're really picking it up.
You can smell it. It's much stronger when they're open.
Okay.
So.
Okay. We can use this fruit with Mamlambo. But I think that if we aren't wanting more information about the smugglers, we could go in at night or try.
This village doesn't take up much space. It's fairly easy to go around it, right? I mean, it's not if you want to go into the jungle upstream or downstream from it, they're not going to see you or stop you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. What's up, Doc?
I hate to be a damper on things, but is this really our problem? I mean, we weren't sent here to bust the smuggling ring. We send her to find everything we can about the monster, then head back. If we all end up dead, we can't really send information that way.
My concern's more about what they're doing with Mamlambo.
That is my concern too. What they are doing is unnatural. It is not the way to preserve this environment.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I don't know what we can. I don't know what we can do about them specifically.
Yeah, just the four of us. I know, putting my player hat on. I know this is Savage Worlds, and we're a cut above regular people and all, but still, we're just people, So
sure.
We're not bulletproof.
What are we discussing? I'm sorry, I stepped out for a moment.
We're just
the doctor was questioning once again whether or not we were putting ourselves in danger for no particular reason, or not for good reason. And they were convincing him that the fact that the smugglers seem to be using the monster is a good reason to go, get more information about the smugglers.
Eventually the monster could get killed if they sent out military after this thing. Then we would end up seeing a fairly innocent creature get slaughtered. And eventually, but they already know about this, so they already know about the creature. So if something isn't done quickly, they might come in with gunboats and cannons and stuff and try to kill this thing. They already ate one of their people, so we need to defuse the situation. How far
assuming that your theory is right and that Mamlambo took out the other police boats, then presumably it's responsible, or it's at least was manipulated into at least a dozen dead people here for this. So
Yes, I mean they're coming out here with the gunships and everything. Mm-hmm. Eventually, whoever passes for military around here, eventually say this is a threat, and. Yeah, and they will come out with the big. Right now, they haven't.
Well, it's a crown colony, so it would be the British Army, right? I mean, that's
the British Army would come in and kill them. So it's a good point. How far are we away from our original? From where we started.
4 days.
How far have you? Yeah, you're 3-4 days up the river, so
Oh yeah.
Say you're traveling 12 hours at about 1200 for you're 300-400 miles from Freetown at this point.
Okay, so there's no telegraph office nearby, I take it. So
that's less than that, probably 200 miles at the rate that you're actually going.
That's okay. Pretty much. I was like, wow, we're going faster than I thought.
Because we're on a slower boat. So even.
You are on a slow boat, right? Yeah.
All right.
But you're nearing the end of the rivers, right? Like from here, it's going to start going up into the mountains. There's not that much, actual jungle out here left anymore. So.
I guess we go to the private property and see what we can do. This may be sabotage.
Okay. So you wait until night and get back on the river there for this. So you are not going back to Mamlambo right now. You are leaving him to deal with later.
We
the rock that he was saying
until I mean he's only 20 minutes away or something.
Yeah, a mile is what I heard.
Less.
Yeah.
So we may as well.
They didn't seem to know that, right? Like they're not keeping individual track of him. They clearly know he's around, but they don't know he's that close right now. They're not watching him, minute by minute. So
yeah, we should fill our time by going to Marlin Perkinsing as much as possible.
Fair enough.
I'm game for that.
All right. So you head back down the Oxbow. Past the, hippos, basically. I'm going to say at this point, a couple of hours have gone past, and so he has certainly at least shifted in the sun. So now his head is also, out of the water, right? And he is clearly just sort of snoozing away, enjoying the, heat of the day, basically, while being in the river, to, keep part of his body cool. He is,
more
enjoying
pictures.
The rest of it.
Yeah.
Piles of pictures, all the pictures you want. He's gorgeous, right? I mean, this enormous, creature.
So I'm going to try and show him that I'm not a threat, just like I did earlier, and I'm going to cut some fruit open, and I'm going to start tossing it from my shore over to that rock, towards that rock so he can catch it.
Yellow or red or both?
I'm going to start with yellow because I know he likes that.
Okay. As soon as you cut it open...
What about the taste of the red? Was it similar?
It's different, but strong, right?
Okay.
It's similar, but you can definitely tell the difference between them.
Okay.
For it. As soon as you cut a yellow one, he wakes up, his eyes open.
And I toss it to him, and I start doing all the standard, animal calming,
Is this okay?
I'm not.
So you're literally just kind of throwing them from the boat.
No. I got on shore.
You go on shore. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right, so you
She just at the opposite shore, I think.
Yeah, opposite shore from him, because he's on the rock, and so I'm
tossing
them from the shore.
So you're throwing them from the shore. All right, awesome, excellent. Okay.
Oh boy.
So are you? Yeah, if you're throwing them, into the water, basically, if you're on the other shore, probably for it.
Yeah.
So once you've got 2 or 3 of them out there for it, he has kind of stirred and brought his neck up for this, and gets a whiff of them for it. And heads into the water.
Okay.
Him moving sets the hippos off on the other side. As soon as he starts moving, they're like, "We're out of here." Okay. This is the point where we usually get eaten, right? So they're heading back into the jungle.
So
as soon as they see him actually moving, they're like, "We're done."
So
and he goes and he eats the fruit that's floating in the water. He will literally just kind of come over and snap. I mean, they're tiny, right?
Yeah.
Like compared to him, right?
Compared
Like
to
his enormous mouth, But he goes for each one. He probably gets 2 or 3 at a time.
Okay.
It's like Skittles.
I'll
Yeah,
slow,
that's exactly
I'll
what it
slow the
is,
rate
right?
basically of feeding it, but I will continue to do that so that my
Okay.
team can start doing some of the things they're doing. And I also point out, seems that our theory is proven. The fruit is what's getting him, clearly.
Yeah. Oh,
Because,
he seems to
you
love it.
have a
He'll
theory.
go. Yeah.
Being a scientist, you have a theory, you test the theory. We are testing the theory very well.
Right? He totally goes for it. Absolutely.
Okay.
He likes it.
Great. So I'll be doing that while my party does other
he is now like in the water, right? And
Yep.
so like he sees the source of where these are being thrown.
And it's like
so
a doll. He's like a seal
He's
coming
starting
up
to
for
move.
now.
He's starting to move a little closer to you, right? Like to get towards you. He gets a little ways towards you, and then his nostrils kind of flare again, and he stops. And he stays where he is. He's keeping a certain amount of distance between himself and you from this, because it seems that he's now gotten close enough to
be getting fed. Yep. So I'll do
yeah.
that. And
I will take
I'll
and
take
cut
pictures.
a red open.
Okay. On the boat, or are you on the? Are you by?
I'm assuming that I'm by her. That the boat's by where Mateus is throwing stuff from.
You cut a red one. He backs up in the water for it. He starts putting more distance between you.
I don't like the red ones. Okay.
So red ones will repel him. So, but yeah, I'm taking pictures. I mean, think about this. This
Sure.
shot is just awesome.
Now he's looking back at you, and frankly, his big kaiju face looks sad that you've opened a red one near him, because he's like, yellow. Do you have yellow? But now you have red. Oh no, that's bad. And now he's kind of like backed off, like that was a mean trick, kind of.
I will
like,
throw the
literally
red
getting on
one
his
into
face,
the jungle.
Right? What's that?
I will throw the red one into the jungle away from where we are.
Right.
I'll
And
continue slowly feeding yellows.
he now is you got to keep, if you keep doing it, eventually he will kind of like get over it, but he's never he's still looking at you for like a hint of betrayal, right? Like it's I know you've got more red ones over there, like so I'm a little more cautious about getting too close, but as long as you keep throwing him yellow ones, he will stay in the area.
Okay.
So
Well, that's what I'm doing while Brandon and other people do stuff. So.
all right, what are the rest of you doing? Do you want to try to go get a sample or whatever?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think
I guess so.
that's exactly what I was thinking of doing.
Right. So you're just getting like what is scraped off on the rock that the rock he was
Basically,
lying on?
yeah.
Not
Hey
a
Doc,
problem.
you want to come help with this?
Sure.
Not a problem. He's enormous, and like you can pull off a scale that's probably like that big, right? It's,
Nice.
So sure, not a problem.
All right, great.
After a bit, once
I'm
this has
just,
gone on for
staying
half an
on
hour or so,
Overwatch.
he's gonna start getting bored from this and actually want a real meal, right? Like
Yeah. We'll be
It's-
gone soon enough.
right. So, but I mean, you guys, you are a source of candy as far as he's concerned. So he's not going to eat you, but at some point he's going to be like, you know what? I'm gonna go get a hippo. I'll be back, right? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he turns around and swims up onto the shore and heads in the direction that the hippos went.
Okay.
Right? He's like, I know where the hippos are. I'm going that way to, I need an actual real meal here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This fruit is great and all, but it's not.
Maybe something substantial. Yeah.
Yeah.
I need a real meal.
Good.
So
good,
he starts heading off into the jungle.
Okay.
You've got like 2 decent like football sized scales,
Nice.
from this thing. You've got all of the fruits and stuff. So
Pictures of tracks.
you've got rolls and rolls of film with him. So oh yeah, and definitely if you want the tracks and everything too,
Yeah.
you can totally. Like I said, there's
And
the
footprints.
feet in the end are actually small, right? Like
Uh-huh.
comparatively, like that. The structure of his body makes no physical sense any more than any other kaiju does, right? It just is, they should weigh more than they do. It's not really understanding.
And
Hey, Mateus, do you have any more of that fruit left?
a few. Only about half a dozen.
That's okay. You know what? I'd like to make some fruit bombs. Just in case.
Bombs. Okay.
With the red
So-
or the red, we have all.
Yeah, you've got a bucket of, you've got a
We've got
bushel
a
basket
bucket
of
of
reds,
pulse.
and you've got a small number of yellows.
He'd like to put, like, maybe a couple of each, because you never know when we'll want to attract or repel this thing.
Right.
But small explosives, just small explosives enough to burst the fruit in 2 of each.
Okay.
Ruby.
Anybody want to carry these?
Oh,
I'll carry them if you want, but
Carry my fruit.
Yeah.
bomb.
Heck,
All right,
if you want to make
excellent.
two of the repulsor bombs for each of us, because that seems like the safer one, quote.
well, they're kind of big, so
Okay.
it's kind of probably unwieldy. I mean, we can carry them in sacks or something, but they're gonna be you're gonna be running around. They're gonna be like bumping into each other. You want to make sure they're
Yeah. Sure, I'll
you want
carry
to be careful
one.
around. But I figure if this thing's if we run into a bunch of commies and we want fruit juice all over them, this is a good way of delivering that to attract him. And if we ever want to create an area where it won't go, the red one will be useful.
Mm-hmm.
So,
All right. So you're going in at night. You wait for the
Yeah.
sun to go down,
Yeah.
and then penetrate to the jungle. Are you going? Which side basically? Are you going like back down your old path, or are you going farther up ahead
what do you guys
to
think?
avoid the?
Sneak.
I mean, the direction that you already went back to go back to him. So if you were to go ahead, you would have to pass the village again. Right?
We'd have to pass the village again, yeah.
Right. So if you go back on the side that you're on, you don't have to pass the village.
Right. Is it possible to go? I mean, we
yeah.
know there's a path behind the village.
Right. Which I presume you are hoping to meet up with at some point, right? Like if you
Yes.
go straight back from the village and then your direction. In theory, you should cross.
Oh,
you
great.
know? But I'm assuming that you want to do that away from the village where they can't see you. So.
Yes. If
Right,
that's
yeah.
feasible, then that's what I vote for.
Okay. So that sounds like a survival roll, presumably from Mateus, who I think has your best survival roll.
Happy to. This die is awesome.
While we're on the ground,
I rolled an 8
oh,
and
sounds
a
like she
4.
did awesome
Yep.
anyways.
Yeah.
I got a 13 total.
That sounds delightful.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh, I love that.
So you've got a couple of lights, a couple of flashlights, and are moving carefully through the jungle. It gets very thick very quickly, right? But once again, you grew up in the Amazon, right? Like moving through a thick jungle is not exactly new to you, and everybody else is just kind of following your lead. Right?
And
Very quickly, any of the other three of you would get lost
Mm-hmm.
pretty quickly in here for this, but Mateus seems to know what he's doing and is pretty comfortable moving through this.
Yeah, I'm going to try and keep us quiet and stealthy as well.
Sure, exactly. So, you travel maybe a mile or two into the jungle, probably, certainly less than 2 miles, and you eventually, you're heading in the right direction. You cross that kind of like cleared path, right, where it seems that people walk back and forth on this fairly frequently.
Mm-hmm.
It suddenly becomes much easier. Like you don't have to cut through anymore to get there for it. There is a 2-person wide path that's fairly obvious, and you're heading up in the dark. You keep traveling along this path for maybe another half a mile, and you see lights up ahead.
Okay.
And as you are kind of like approaching, you now see Mateus. You notice the trees around here in this section seem to not be growing wildly, right? Like this is here on purpose, the way that it is.
They're cultivated.
And as you're kind of like looking, there's kind of a square, basically, that you're approaching one corner of, right? That kind of like goes out in different directions of like cultivated trees. And as with the light, as you're checking them out, you realize these are red bullum trees for it. These have red bullum, like the fruit actually hanging in them. And they're grown so close together, it's maybe only 4 or 5 trees deep, but they are sufficiently close together that would be no way for Mamlambo to get through them without touching one, right? Like his body would not fit in the gaps. A person could walk through them,
So it's
but
a natural
Mamlambo's
barrier.
body won't actually go. Right. Well, except it's clearly it's a natural barrier that somebody grew, that somebody planted here, right? Of course. And then there's kind of like a gap between the outer square, and then in the center of it, you can kind of see shining up ahead, there is a grove, as Aldo guessed, of yellow trees, all kind of like growing in, like very kind of like straight lines in a smaller square that's inside the bigger outer square, right? And next to that copse of trees is a small camp. It's got 3 or 4 buildings and some tents. You can see a couple of trucks and everything for it. There is a single dirt road that leads east up into the hills from here. And they have, at that space where there is that road, they couldn't grow the trees there, right? Like the red bullum trees kind of like stop, and there is a large metal gate that has been kind of like installed between the 2 edges of the red bullum trees, so that a car can actually like go back and forth, because you couldn't drive a car between them either at that point, right? So there's one kind of like single metal gate. They've got some, like lights hanging on posts, and there are several guys who are, just kind of like standing around out there, and they all seem to have guns.
How many guys?
4 or 5. I'm going to say 5.
Ruby,
You count.
Okay.
can you take them all?
I don't think that would be in our best interests. There are more guys beyond them, and we're out here alone. All of us stick out like a sore thumb.
Samang, I want you to roll a notice roll.
Aha. Okay, let's see. My notice D8.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a D6, and let's see. I rolled an 8.
Fabulous. All right, reroll
Plus
the 8.
7.
So that's a total of 15.
Yeah.
All right, so Mateus has the fanciest goggles basically, and is sitting there at the by the red bullum tree, looking in at all of this, right? And you're and then taking pictures and doing whatever for us. Yeah, probably handed the goggles off to somebody so that he could get some pictures. But you're still at a distance, right? I mean, these aren't the greatest shots from this far away. So as they're kind of like doing that, and Dr. Abbott is looking over for this, you hear something. And you realize that moving through the jungle behind you is something really enormous, and based on what is you're thinking, like Mamlambo is like actually like physically behind you at this point, right?
Whoa.
And as you are kind of like keeping an eye on him, you see that he's kind of circling around the outside of the outer square, right? Like he knows what's in the middle there, and he probably spends a fair amount of time just kind of like walking around the outside of the red square, hoping that he could find a way in to get to the yellow one.
Oh, well. Hey.
And you can tell he's not that far behind you, right? Like it's he's certainly aware that you guys are carrying a sack of like another 5 or 6 yellows, and then a bigger sack of reds, which is what's keeping him at a distance, right? But he's aware of you guys definitely, and is just kind of like hanging out in the jungle back there, wishing he could get inside.
Hey, team. Mamlambo's here.
Yeah.
Listen, maybe we don't have to take anybody out. If we get close enough, I might be able to plant explosives around a couple of those trees and take them out. And then Mamlambo could do the rest of the work for us.
And there is a big grove for it to eat from and feed.
Oh, yeah. And he knows it. Or she, I guess. We don't know what Mamlambo is.
One question for you, Darren. How many years ago did the Kaijus start? Like 10 years ago?
Literally 10. It's 55 now, and it was 45 when we dropped the bombs.
So how old do these trees look to me? This is a pretty good grove, the way you're describing it.
Grove. Yep, exactly. These have clearly been cultivated, so your guess is probably like this. A lot of these are transplants, right? Like that's
okay.
They weren't all grown from seeds here. They were planted here, So, but they all do look relatively young. I mean, they do grow like reasonably fast. But this is not just 10 years of growth. This is
Okay.
And the smugglers haven't been here a full 10 years, right? Like, I mean, the smugglers have been saying, the cops were saying the smugglers have only been a real problem here for the last year or two. So they had to physically plant this.
What do you all think?
Well, how close do you need to be to set up the explosives?
Well, as close as those trees are to the I have to get up to the trees.
I was going to say, you can plant charges on the trees. And,
right.
you know,
And remote
and then remote them from, you know.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Let's do
But
it.
to actually plant them, I have to get up there.
Okay. Now, is that going to be close to where these guards are?
You
I
can
guess it depends on
no,
where
you
we
can do
decide to
it
put
right.
them.
Like the camp is only on one side of the grove, right? All you have to do is do it on another side of the grove,
Right.
and there'll be a shitload of trees between you and the guard.
Okay.
Right, there'll be a forest between you.
That sounds like a good idea. Let's do it.
It's you guys pick where you want to put the opening in the in the outer layer, basically.
Well, the opening that will bring it closest to the camp and where the yellow fruit is.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, that's
it'll
what
be
I'm
all
saying.
the-
The yellow's in the middle, right? So it's like from all sides, it's the same distance.
Okay, so yeah, set them off from all sides. And
So you want
while
the
you're
police-
setting the explosives, we'll keep watch. So with our stun
Okay.
guns in case any of these guys see you. Do
All
the
right,
stun
I
guns
can-
make any? Do the stun guns make any noise?
I think they make some kind of Flash Gordon,
Okay.
My image of them is they like shoot like concentric circles of energy, right, kind of thing.
Okay.
So it's
Yes, that's
So
perfect.
yes, they do make noise, but not like they're gonna draw people from a mile away or whatever.
All right. So what do you think? Opposite the gate,
Okay.
behind the camp, basically, or somewhere else?
Behind the camp. I vote behind the camp, but
All
I'm
right.
not. Tactics are not my thing. That is more you and Ruby. So I will leave you two to.
Me, I'm the tech guy.
How
Speaking
quiet?
of which,
How
I'm not
quiet
I
are
don't
you
feel
gonna be?
comfortable going out there by myself. I want somebody watching my back while I'm planting
An
these things.
explosion big enough to like knock over trees is not going to be quiet.
No,
Right.
I don't care about the explosion. How
Oh, okay.
quiet are you going to be?
How quiet am I?
Setting this up, how quiet are you going to be?
Well, I'm not going to be, singing the national anthem or anything, but I'll be as quiet as I can be. I'm not a sneak.
I haven't heard the Cambodian national anthem.
Hey, I can sing whatever national anthem I want to sing. But anyway, listen, I'd like somebody with
I'm
me
with
while I'm
you.
planting. Thank you.
I will go with you. I will guide you. Can Dr. Bill, could you stay here and look out for us?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to guide them because I am the stealthiest of the group and I can traverse this the best, so I can keep
Right,
it the quietest.
Okie doke. All right. Well, let's let's do a stealth roll here for this because
Sure.
right, it's not that survival isn't that big a deal at this
6.
point here for this.
I got a 6. on my
Okay.
Do
Got
we
it,
all
okay.
roll, or just the leader?
Usually, well, here's the way this would ordinarily work for this is the person with the best roll, the best die for it, usually rolls first. If other people have like a cool role-playing way that they are helping for this, then you can I can assign bonuses to
Okay.
her roll because you said something cool about the way that you were, like helping out, right? So if you came up with a good idea and it's her roll, I'd be like, well, she's +2 because you had a good idea, right?
Okay.
So.
I'm all out of good ideas right now.
All right, so you guys sneak over to where the to where you've decided to pick, to 3 or 4 of the trees to kind of like blow them over. You've left Dr. Bill back around where Mamlambo is, right, kind of thing. So he's going to have to get to you to know that there's that there's a hole, right, for this. To come out. So first thing is you set the explosives though. So go ahead and give me your MacGyver roll in doing that.
Okay, let's see.
I'm gonna say this is gonna be electronics, right? Because you're like setting up a fuse and everything there. Of course, so.
All right.
And you do get a well, no, you don't. Your Mr. Fix-It is +2, but this is not a you're not repairing the thing. You're building a new thing. So
Okay, let's see. D6. I rolled a 6 on one of the die.
there you go. Okay.
I rolled a 1 on the
See,
other one.
this is a terrible play session for showing people how the rules works because you guys haven't blown a roll yet.
I know.
So
I
you've been,
know.
like, right on all of them. Okay.
I know. And I rolled a 4 on the second one, so that's 10.
So that's a 10.
Darren
Okay.
just jinxed us, right?
Right. Or I'm
I
trying
know.
to, so I can actually show off how this game works.
Next 3 rolls.
All right. So that's that's 6 over what you needed, so that is 1 raise.
Mhm.
So, what would you like the benefit of that to be? Do you want the explosion to be bigger? Do you want it to be, efficient? Do you want it to be quieter? What do you want?
I think I would like for it to be efficient, because one of the things I'm concerned about is that the trees will fall in such a way that they're still unpleasant for Mamlambo.
Sure. Okay.
So for the tree to fall kind of like...
Leaving as wide a space as possible. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That works.
Cool.
All right. So you set these charges, and then kind of you back away to a safe distance,
Yeah.
back into the jungle, and set them off. There is a fairly sizable kaboom as 3 or 4. The trees aren't that big, right? They're only like maybe that big around the trunk, right? So like strapping an explosive onto this, pretty much we'll take it out pretty easily, right? They're going down.
Mhm.
You have them, kind of like set so that they fall away from each other, leaving a nice, kind of like open space. That's pretty much going to work. There's pretty much going to be a wide open space from here. Unfortunately for you, there are in fact patrols, kind of like walking around the end of this. And when a explosion goes off in their, kind of immediate neighborhood, they immediately, kind of like turns like, what the hell was that? And start heading towards the space of the explosion. So we've got 2 guys with guns who are chasing down to where the area of the explosion was for it. And Mamlambo has to kind of like figure out that there's a hole, right? And he's not very bright, so he's going to have to make some like, smarts rolls to figure out that you've like opened the space.
Okay.
So we're gonna have a combat session here for this because we're also it's like we're close to wrapping up
Who has
time
yellows,
here.
who has reds on the bombs?
Oh, excellent question. Right.
Yes, because that was my plan too. I figured those patrols are actually a boon.
Yep, so who
Those
has
are-
reds and who has yellows out?
I figured I had one of each. I didn't know who else wanted.
I was willing to take
Well,
Well, actually, no. I
Matthias
need
said you
2
wanted one.
of each. So I don't care if other people wanted to carry them. He's cool with other people carrying them. So
I think it's each of you has 1 each, basically,
Okay,
right?
yeah,
That
that
makes
makes
2 each for it. So that just
So
seems
the
easy
question
to
is
track
who's
of.
carrying what color. So Brandon called color.
1 each.
1 each.
Oh, 1 each. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We have 1 each.
A
That's
yellow
awesome.
and a red.
okay.
All right, so we're in initiative time here for this. So we will call these out. Brandon is Ace of Diamonds.
Ace high or low in this game?
Ace is high.
Awesome, you're first.
Tim is a Queen of Hearts, probably. Queen of Diamonds. 2 of Diamonds for Alice. Oh, hang on. Ace of Clubs for the guards.
So
And
what
5
is the
of
order
Clubs for
of
Mamlambo.
suits?
Suits go reverse alphabetical, so it is spades, hearts, diamonds, clubs. So Ace of Diamonds still goes first. So Ruby is, in fact, the first person to go.
Okay, so what is the current scene unfolding in front of us?
A kaboom has just gone off, and 3 or 4 trees red bullet trees have fallen to the ground.
Mhm.
This has drawn the attention of one of the rotating patrols, kind of like walking. So there are 2 guys with guns who are running towards you. Running towards the site of the explosion, having seen these, trees fall down. They know how dangerous it is for the trees to go down, so they are, definitely on edge about this, that, something bad is going on. Mamlambo is still back with by Dr. Bill and has to actually make a smarts roll to figure out that you have opened a hole for him.
All right.
But he doesn't go for a bit. You're up first.
So, as these guys are coming, I think I am going to try and take a shot at one of them.
Okie doke.
And
Are you using your rifle or are you using your stun gun?
rifle.
Okay.
So, I have a D8 of shooting. Range is 24 on it.
Right.
And I get to ignore up to 2 points of shooting penalties.
Right. You are at long distance, so you have a total of 4 points of shooting penalties, so that means only 2 apply to you because of your marksmanness for this. So
There's an 8, and there's a 2, so that's 10, so 8 after the neg 2.
you shoot one of them. Right. Okay. That is going to be a hit. Go ahead and roll the damage. If
Okay,
hit without
how do you roll damage?
Should say what the
2d8.
damage done is for it. Yeah.
4 and an 8. Do the 8s explode?
The 8s continue to explode, yep. So,
Okay, 4, 8, 12, 14 total.
okay, that's a lot. So that is, let's see here. That is compared to their physical toughness for this. His toughness is 6. You did a total of 14. That's 2 raises. So you have done a total of, he is shaken, takes a wound, and takes a second wound. So he is incapacitated. It is your choice whether or not he is dead, because this is a fairly friendly game about killing things. For this, you can choose to have not killed him, but that is a shot that would have killed him if you wanted to kill him.
I was
If you
more
don't want to,
aiming
then you can
to-
say, like, I went for the leg and I, just took him out.
Actually, that's exactly where I wanted it to hit him, was shooting for the legs, just to
Okay.
basically stop them, slow them down, and then I'll let a giant lizard kill him if he decides to.
Right. In a game that took combat more seriously, you can do called shots and that sort of thing for this. But like I said, this game runs combat fairly fast and loose, uses all the kind of like, lighter sides of Savage World. Savage Worlds can get fairly kind of like dark and serious about its combat if it wants to, but that's not really appropriate for our genre. So he is incapacitated, is the point, in whatever means that you feel that he should be incapacitated. The next person up is the other guard for this, and he is going to shoot at you, since you did the shooting. And he has a shooting of D8, but he is not a wild card, so he does not also get a D6. He only has the 1 die to shoot with. And he is trying to hit you for it. So he is at a distance. He stops where he is, and he fires, and he rolled a 6, and he's at -4 for distance. He is not a marksman, so that's a 2. So a bullet whizzes past you and does not, in fact, hit you.
Okay.
So that is next. So the next person to go, in that case, is the Queen of Hearts, is Dr. Bill. Dr. Bill, what are you up to?
The guy that just shot at him, I'm going to hit him. I'm going to shoot him with the stun gun.
You're
on the
way
other
miles
side.
away. You're on the other side of the square. You're backed by the monster.
Oh, okay.
For
Is
this,
anyone?
so your stun gun does not have nearly enough range.
Is there anyone in my range?
Nope.
Just the monster that we're
well,
trying to
just the
guide
monster.
toward.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
you
I'm
want to
gonna
try to
grab, I'm gonna grab one of the yellow fruit and throw it in the direction that I need it to go.
Okay.
Okay.
Once again, it's a long distance to throw it. If you want to carry it, if you want to wave one in front of him and start running, he will follow you.
Okay, I can do that. I can do that.
Do a
Wait, football.
Right? Okay, so basically, yeah, you take one of the yellow melons and just kind of wave it into the woods, and then turn around and take off. And he starts slithering after you, headed to get him to the right side of the square.
That
Okay,
helps the smart rolling excessively.
Now I will say that will give him a bonus to his roll when the time comes around. Samaya, you are up.
Okay. Is there another guard, patrol that has not?
There's a total of 4 2-man patrols, one on each kind of side of it. So the others have heard what's going on, but they're hella gone. It's going to take them a while to get here.
And I'm sorry, I got distracted momentarily. Did Brandon take out both the 2-man patrols?
No, he only took out one of them.
Okay,
the other
so
one
the
shot
one
back
that's
and
left-
missed.
Is he within range for me to throw a yellow fruit at him?
How strong are you?
Not very, I think.
Yeah. I mean,
he's not a wimp, but he's average.
right, yeah. I'm going to say this is long range for
Stronger
you,
than me.
so it would be a minus to the roll to actually hit him. For it.
Okay, so-
but you can certainly take the shot.
He'll take the shot. He's actually, what he's throwing is one of his fruit bomb one.
Right? Okay.
And so I'm more interested in it detonating in his area. I hit him directly.
Sure.
Cool, but,
Got it. Okay, so you're specifically throwing a yellow one, right? Because you want to dry and not drive anymore.
Exactly. Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. D4 plus D6 minus what? 4, you said?
Yes.
Unless I roll a 6 or 4 here, I did roll a 4, but I rolled a 1 follow up, so it's not going to be.
Okay, so that's a 5. So that's a 1. A 5 was your best of the 2 dice, basically.
Yeah, I total
okay.
5 minus 4, so
All right.
I missed by
So
3.
your bomb goes off. You throw and it explodes. It's not really close to him, but it's closer to him than you are, right? I mean, it's
Right.
you've set off an explosion over there in his neighborhood.
Yeah,
right? But he's not going to take any damage from it or anything.
sure, but hopefully the smell will attract.
Exactly, right. Well, you have also vaporized a yellow golem, like in that area. I'm sure that's very exciting for Mamlambo. All right, Mamlambo goes. So Mamlambo, he's chasing after in that direction from Bill, and then there's like an explosion that goes off over there, and he now needs to make his smarts roll to see if he figures out that there's a gap in the protection there. Now, he is pretty dumb.
Pretty dumb.
But we'll see. He does not. So he is still more interested in Dr. Bill right now. Where this Dr. Bill is the only confirmed source of fruit that he has. So he's going to stick by Dr. Bill. He's not going to run through the gap or anything for this. He is looking for the melon that Dr. Bill is carrying.
That's the area where I needed to go. So.
Yeah, you're running. You're going in the right direction, and he's staying right behind you, right? Like, I mean, his head is not very far behind you, moving through the jungle. So, and his head is way taller than you, right? Like, this is a great shot of like your little body and his head moving, like right behind you. Mateus, you are up, and you are last this round.
Okay, I
Okay.
am going to try and shoot something, but I suck at it. So,
Okay.
can I just aid, can I basically create cover fire to improve Ruby's shot?
To improve Ruby's shot next time.
Because I'm not great at shooting. I know that, if
Right.
I'm aiming for the forehead, I'm probably not going to hit. So if I do a blanket fire, maybe I can do better.
Let me see here.
Thank you. I'd just like to point out that my birthday's in 2 days, and Brandon's got this huge bag with happy birthday for me. Like, this is the bag he's been reusing for years. But he's got my birthday bag out on the table and won't let me look inside it. He's being cruel, and this is cruel and
terrible.
You can look inside it. Lightning, Alice.
I see lightning. Yeah, I heard it. Yeah, I can look inside it today. Oh, okay. It's empty right now. And I hear thunder.
Yep.
Happy birthday, Alice.
Thank you. It's on the 30th.
Yeah,
I'm going to be 38 years
Monday,
old.
right?
Really?
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm 38.
You don't look 38.
Thank you, I think.
All right,
Yeah,
I have found things like suppressive fire that are how to do area of effect and stuff. I'm not seeing any improve somebody else's shot thing right
Aldo,
here.
what did you say?
No, I also said happy birthday. It's Monday, right?
It's
Yes.
Monday, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure you can do much to improve
What
his
about
shot.
aiding attacks in general? Or
Right.
team attacks?
I'm gonna let you do like a support basically to see if you can call out something useful to him, right? For this of like where she should be shooting.
Sure.
So go ahead and make your shooting roll, and if you succeed on it, I will let you give a +2 to her.
Sure thing. I get a whole D4.
Yeah, and a D6. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. And a D6. I rolled a 1 and a 2, so...
All right, so yeah, you're not being much help there,
Nope.
one way or the other for this. Unfortunately. Okay, so that means it's another round, so we get new cards. Okay, so Brandon, 4 of clubs. Tim, 10 of diamonds. Aldo, 7 of clubs. Joker. Alice gets a joker.
Ooh,
Hang on, I'll tell you what that means in a moment.
that's so
Bad guys get a king of clubs to go as a group, and poor Mamlambo gets a 10 of clubs. All right, so the way a joker works is you can go anywhere in the round that you want for this. Any roll that you make this turn is a +2 for you, and everybody in the group gets another Benny. Everybody on your side.
Nice.
So that's one more Benny for everybody. We barely spent any Bennies in this game here for this.
True.
But,
But now you can just blow
we
them
do
all.
another example, right? So everybody gets one more Benny. And Alice, you now can go anywhere in the round you want. So do you
Okay.
want to go first? When do you want to go?
I am going... Can I call out as things develop?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going
Absolutely.
to do that because I'm going to listen.
So you're
but
just
I don't
gonna
want to
wait
go
and-
first.
Got it. Okay. So you will go first. for this. The actual first person in that case for it is that.
Okay.
What?
Hello?
What
Going
happened?
to arrive on time.
Oh,
Is who?
Okay.
what'd you
What's
say?
The actual first person
What?
is who?
Is the bad guys.
Okay.
Is the guards
Cool.
for it.
I'm
So,
grabbing a couple of
two-
2d4s.
No problem. 2 new guards arrive on scene. That's their action. They can't shoot, and that's they're making a full extra pace run to get there. So one person is shooting back at Ruby. Oh, and
So I've got
that's
a
right.
question
Hang on.
on Savage Worlds. On the shooting that I did, I rolled pretty high on him on the 2 hit. Normally, when you roll X above, you get a benefit. But it wasn't until the damage, right?
I believe you rolled really well on the damage.
No, he rolled
Right?
a 10 to hit, and then it became an 8 with the neg 2 modifier for range.
Oh, so that still wouldn't even be a 4 above. But would
It
you
needs to be
normally
4
get
above.
benefits?
You would get an extra die to your damage if you had gotten a raise on the to hit.
Gotcha.
Right.
Cool.
Now your regular damage can still spike up, which is I believe what actually happened on your turn there for it. But you get to roll an extra die if your to hit is good enough from it. Gets a raise above that. So
Awesome.
okay, so I've got one person shooting at you, and even with their minus, they hit an 11. So that's a hit with a raise.
Now, can a
so
Benny
they are
help
shooting
protect you?
What a Benny can do is soak this damage, which we will show how to do once we have figured out what the damage that they did was.
Awesome.
So, your toughness is, I believe, a 7.
7 with
One
one
of that
in
is-
parentheses. So
That
armor.
means one of it comes from your armor. That's
Okay.
basically the jumpsuit that you're wearing gives you +1 to what it would be, ordinarily from. It's toughness is derived from your stats, right? For it, so it's how much above a 7 that I do here will tell me what your state is from this. So first, I determine the damage, and the damage is a 6. 7 is a total of 11. So that is 4 points above your toughness. You get to, so that's not a raise. So the effect of this would be that you are shaken but not wounded. You can spend a Benny to soak that damage and not be shaken.
Sure. So I'm down to 3 bennies, it sounds like.
Right. So, hang on. All right, so you are making a soak. You're spending a Benny from this, and you are now making a vigor check. You are rolling whatever die is your vigor, which is a D8.
Okay. And I get the D6 along with it?
Yes.
Okay. So I've got a 1 and a 2 here.
right.
That sounds like I probably had spent another Benny to re-roll that.
You
That
can
sounds
in fact
bad.
reroll. You can in fact reroll Benny to check that vigor because that would have failed. Yes.
I've got a 5 on the D8.
Okay. It only beat you by 4, so that is in fact will remove 1 condition. It moves you back up. So since you were only 1 condition into trouble, therefore you were shaken. That means that you are not shaken from it. That undoes at the cost of those 2 bennies. You are in fact basically taking no damage from that attack. Okay, the next person to do something is Dr. Bill. Dr. Bill, you're being chased by a monster. Who really wants your fruit?
Okay, well, I'm going to run as fast as I can. Once I get to the center, I'm going to
Okay.
throw the fruit into the center.
Okay. Now, keeping in mind, you're the slowest of the bunch, right? Because you got the bad leg.
I know.
So how
So
close
it's-
does he get to us?
it's
This is why I'm
taking a
holding
bit.
my action.
Here's what we're going to find out. Let's see here. I'm going to want you to give me a running roll, and you don't have running as a skill.
Joy.
So,
And my running is going to be D4, I believe.
Yep, because of your hindrance.
So D4.
So you're going to
to
take a D4 and add it to your. Actually, no, you don't get the D6 for this one. This is one roll for it, and you are adding this to your pace of 5.
Okay, so D4 plus 5.
Right.
8.8.
8 total. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that is short range. So I'm going to say, that's how far you move ahead of Mamlambo this turn, right? As he is chasing you for this. He is considerably faster than that, so he's likely to catch up with you this action.
After he does this at this point, is Mamlambo within shot of me? And because I'm Mamlambo's friend and all, can Mamlambo?
Yes.
Okay. At that point, I'm going to grab my yellow bomb, which is why I was waiting to assess the situation. I'm going to grab my yellow bomb and toss it in through the opening so that I'm basically, air traffic controlling him directly into that opening.
Got it. Okay, right. So you're trying to make a big cloud of fruit
go that way.
Kind of thing over here.
Go that
way. Right. Mm-hmm. Got you. Okay, sure.
So, what do you want me to roll for that?
I'm gonna say that's athletics because you're trying to throw it in a certain direction to make him go figure out what's going on.
Sure thing. So, 2d6. I got a 6 and a 3, so rolling that again.
Like the 6, right?
I got a 1 on that, so that's a 7.
That's a total of 7. Okay, that's not a raise, so I'm not going to but I'm going to say that we'll call for Mamlambo to make another smarts check here to see if he can figure out what it is that you're trying to tell him.
Question: if I spend a Benny, do I get to roll the exploding die? I re-roll from the start, right? I wouldn't re-roll the 1. Right. I would re-roll it from the blank.
You have to re-roll from the beginning. Yes,
that's what I thought.
Exactly.
Just double checking.
The good news is, though, that Mamlambo rolled a 5 this time.
Nice.
Awesome.
So he actually makes a success and figures out what you're trying to do and realizes that there is, in fact, not only is there a nice big cloud of fruit juice that's been blown up from 2 explosions over here for this, but there's a way to get through the trees to actually get to it. Mm-hmm. And so he changes course from chasing Dr. Bill and turns into... to head up the line of the trees to get to the gap and kind of moves directly in.
Awesome. And that's why we call audibles, and that's why
exactly. There you go. So basically, I'm going to take us kind of out of combat at this point because we're approaching the end of the game. And once you have kind of successfully done this, pretty much the fight at that point becomes Mamlambo versus the smugglers in the camp, right? Mm-hmm. And that's not really a fair fight. Mamlambo just kind of comes in and trashes the place. He's been mad at these people for most of a year now since they built this operation. They have, cut down and or transplanted pretty much all of his favorite trees that he would be eating in the first place to put them into this grove to start out with so that they could control him. Which is why the number of appearances of him have increased, as he's kind of ranging farther and farther afield in order to find his favorite trees.
Because he's not aggressive from the experience we had.
Right, exactly. But he has been unable to get at, as much yellow bullum as he would really like because they've cut down all the trees of it for. So he's been mad at these guys for a while. So kind of the final scene of this portion of it is he comes storming through the trees and just tears their camp, to shreds. He's stepping on people and, just devouring enormous amounts of trees while destroying everything in the place. He hits their truck with a tail and sends it flying and destroys it and everything. So you guys, basically at this point, there is nobody paying attention to you any farther to
Great. I am not taking pictures of this happening because I do not want people to get the wrong impression of this creature because this creature has clearly shown himself to not be aggressive as long as he's treated with any level of respect. So I don't want people to come destroying him.
So you do not take any pictures of this for it, okay? He destroys the camp. People are running, for a relatively happy ending. He probably doesn't kill that many people for it. We don't see any shots of it, but we see people fleeing into the jungle in all directions, running away from the camp as all the smugglers are routed fairly quickly. And then Mamlambo just kind of, settles himself down in the middle of the grove of the yellow ones and just starts kind of eating until to his heart's content until he's stuffed full of yellow fruit.
Yay.
And so you guys decide. So
when he does that, though, when he goes into the grove and he settles in and he starts to climb the trees, because he has, based on what I heard, he has to climb the trees to get up. I'm definitely
he stretches. he straightens his legs out so his body is much higher.
Yeah,
right.
I
Like
totally
ordinarily,
take
he
pictures
kind of
of
like
that.
rides low, but yeah.
Because I want
okay.
to show the width of his maneuverability and the way his body moves. So as he's
Absolutely,
reaching
sure.
up the trees, I'm going to take pictures of
Well,
that.
once he gets in there and starts like eating all this stuff, he's gonna eat himself fat, right? Like he'll be totally happy to just kind of take a nap and let you take pictures all you want from it, right? So
I wish.
Sorry.
No, I wish Samang had a single line of pop philosophy on the nature of humanity to say as Mamlambo is doing all this, but I don't, so I can't provide that.
Fair enough.
That kind of.
So what do you do when you return? Presuming that you are now headed back to Freetown after this fort, what are you recommending to the explorers that they do?
Leave him alone.
Right. Okay.
And replant a lot of yellow bullion to keep him happy and in an area, right? If we want to adapt and coexist with it, then creating an ecosystem where it would be able to sustain itself and not go messing other people up would be great.
Sure.
He's not aggressive.
Well, now that you know how to repel him, right? Like villages can plant reds around them and know that he will never come.
That's right.
And like bother them, right? Like you can every village in the area can be surrounded by cops of red ones, and he'll just leave them alone.
Yeah. So, and that too, absolutely.
And we're going to talk to the big chubby guy from the city and tell him about the smugglers that we dealt with and what was happening to the police boats.
Where they're right, okay, yeah. What happened to the police boats? Where their camp was, at least, right? Like I said, they've all fled into the woods now, but they at least know where it was, and you've pretty much broken up the smuggling ring, right? Like you've all of their equipment for handling stolen diamonds and that sort of thing got trashed by Mamlambo, so they're that smuggling operation has at least been in part thwarted. So I'm going to say this is pretty much a complete victory for the heroes. At this point, having completed an actual story for this, each character would get an advance, which is basically you can improve an attribute by a die size, you can improve skills, you can buy off hindrances, you can buy edges. You basically buy one, right? For it. If you are improving skills, you can improve 2 skills that are under their attribute that they match, or 1 that is at or above their attribute, right, is the cost of them. So if you have, attributes kind of like serve as kind of like the costing cap for a skill is one of the main things that they do, right? Yeah. So if you have agility D6 and athletics, to buy your athletics above your agility costs more than it does while it's below, right? Kind of so everybody would get 1 advance for having succeeded in this, and then we would move on to another game. So that is my example version of how Explorers of the Fantastic would work. You can play it. Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant.
That was fun.
I will be lining up to pledge the moment. What was it? October what?
October 29th.
October
the Kickstarter goes live for it. Yep, absolutely. It'll be on Kickstarter.
That was a lot of fun. And you made the creature sufficiently endearing because you definitely, I know I felt really, touched and wanted to protect him and all.
Excellent. Like I said, you can play at different levels, right?
Yeah.
You can do this as horror, you can do this with much more kind of like serious stuff. The game is flexible enough to do both, right? And I figured as an example game for this, we should do a fairly light, fun, kind of like breezy one. I didn't want people to get like bogged down in, like their tactics or anything like that.
Yeah.
But the game does in fact support that if you want to. There's a fair amount, we didn't go into any of kind of like the combat, like variables that you can have to, and as you say, the grit of the game. There's much more crunch than I used for the story if you want it to be there. But it also supports a fairly light, fun, breezy kind of, that poor monster, we should go save him, kind of story. So,
before we sign off, do people have any last minute, they want to give any feedback and they have any questions?
Oh yeah, please, absolutely. Like I said, this is not a finished product yet. So if you have suggestions or things that you think would be awesome or you would like to see, now's a good time. Or you can do it with me afterwards, right? I'm also around.
So Brandon, what are your final thoughts, questions, comments? Like game didn't
I had a fun time. I liked the story that we were doing. I definitely am interested in seeing more as the final product. You get that out to backers when you finish your Kickstarter and all. So
absolutely.
Savage Worlds. It's not the system, my preferred system, but I can play it and I can enjoy it.
Cool.
Yeah, I actually really like Savage Worlds, and this is I've never played it. I've always GM'd it. It's really nice to be on this side of the screen, and
Right.
I always find that it plays better than you've heard this said before, but I agree with it. It plays better than it reads.
Sure. Yeah.
In a lot of ways, and I don't know. I really enjoyed it.
The Adventure Edition. I mean, I never played Savage Worlds until this edition, right? Because they were kind of when I was running Hero, these guys were these guys are the competition. I don't have time to play the competitions.
Right.
I mean, I sat down to see what it was and everything, but I didn't get a chance to really stick my hands in. So this is I'm not that familiar with the previous editions, but I like this one. I picked this up. I picked up the Adventure Edition, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago now at this point. I've been running it in my home group as we're playtesting this and getting things built up. I've now kind of reached the point where I'm comfortable enough in it to build new things as opposed to just using all the stuff that was out there, to do it. I'm making new monsters and inventing new skills and stuff, right? That's 3 or 4 months of getting comfortable before you're ready to do that, right? Before this. So I'm just at that point now, and I have to say I'm a fan. This is working pretty well for me. So.
The guts of the system aren't that different from earlier editions,
right?
The tweaks that they made are I like them all. The default skills that you get right off the bat work really well. I like what I've seen. I'm not totally familiar yet with all the changes they made to edges, but I like what I've seen in terms of those changes. So I'm a fan too.
What about you? You were about to say something?
Oh, well, the campaign reminded me of Marvel Comics. There was a limited series they had called Marvel Universe, and they actually had a Monster Hunter adventure with Dr. Druid.
Sure.
They had Dr. Druid, Ulysses Bloodstone, Makari of the Eternals, and the girl I think her name was a Wakandan woman.
Right.
And it actually had the actual complete origin of the Mole Man. You find out who he really was and everything. And that just reminded me that was a really cool series. And I like it. It's kind of neat. Which have been a little bit more for my character to do, but I see you just wanted to tell a story. But other than that, it seemed pretty cool. I ran I've done a little bit of Savage Worlds. I ran a Necessary Evil game for a while.
Sure.
Enjoyed that.
Unfortunately, you didn't get to heal anybody because nobody ever got hurt in this game. So one of your main uses of the group
were
your dice rolls were pretty crazy high. Yeah, exactly. That just happens or whatever. So I mean, if nobody gets hurt, then we don't. Okay, well then the doctor's only real job is to.
How does this new edition deal with shaken, not shaken? Because that was always a pain in the ass for me when I was running it.
Well, shaken is the first condition that you get beyond being hurt, right? From it.
Okay.
So that needs to be cleared. If you are shaken for a turn, then you either can soak it at the time, or you can spend a Benny to come unshaken on the next action, right? At the beginning of the action. So one way or the other, you are either you're spending Bennies as a cost to get out of those conditions, right? And then each wound that you carry is in an additional minus, but you have the ability as a doctor to even if you can't heal their wounds, you can take away the penalties they get from being wounded, right? So you can be that kind of well, I've patched you up as best I could. Don't do anything more dangerous or you're going to re-injure yourself. But at the very least, I can make you functional, right? To get us out of here kind of thing. So that's kind of a cool way that it handles, that level of combat. Unfortunately, like I said, as the doctor, you didn't get to do that because nobody ever, did anything silly to, provoke the monster. And then when we got to the fight, nobody got hurt. So, okay.
Well, I had the flaw cautious, so I was somewhat cautious in what I did.
Sure.
I wasn't totally stupid.
Oh, yeah.
Jumping into the water.
If Mamlambo had actually gotten a bite on you, he does.
I would have been bad.
He does a pretty grotesque amount of damage.
His bite is cautious for the rest of the game. Very scared.
His bite is a D12 plus 9.
Ooh,
to do that. So that would have
killed you.
Yep.
That would have stacked up some
would have done
damage.
10 damage to you. So yeah.
Yeah.
For me, something I definitely would want to bring up, and this is going to be something I'm going to make sure we hit on when we do character creation as well as the system rundown. I find
Sure.
that a lot of people get very confused about how to run wild dice and run initiative. So a lot of people don't like to use the card system for initiative and don't like to use the wild die. The thing, though, is that it is very core and intricate to the design of Savage
Yes.
Worlds. And
Yeah.
so if you
Yes, it is.
if you find it confusing and simply don't use it, you lose a lot of the dimension and the purpose of the system, and you might as well not be playing the system. But I see
Yeah.
this complaint a lot, and I've even dealt with other GMs where I've played in Savage Worlds. And so when you started off with, you get a wild die today, I'm like, oh, cool, because the last GM I dealt with didn't use a wild die.
Right.
But
Well,
it is,
that level of it, I mean, it makes, it's not that the wild die really like improves you, it makes failure way less common.
and it
Right?
speeds
It
things
sets a
up.
floor.
Yeah.
It does speed things up, but it also sets a floor that it's fairly hard to like kind of go out and just like completely embarrass yourself
Mhm.
as a character, right? Or
Yeah.
that, and for the right kind of game, that's appropriate.
Yeah.
Right? Like you guys should be the best in the world at what you do. Embarrassing failures should be rare and a big deal when they happen. It shouldn't just be, oh, I screwed up a die roll and suddenly I don't know how to use my own equipment that I, carry around, right?
Yeah.
So
Like
what
earlier-
it allows you to kind of have more opportunities to show off and fewer opportunities to kind of, trip and fall.
Yeah,
right?
the
Which
wild
I
die
like.
saved me
Yeah.
multiple times. So, but
Right.
yeah, I definitely
I
think
can understand there are certainly genres that maybe that's not the right idea, right? Like if you're doing some kind of like grim, ordinary soldiers in a war situation where, terrible things happen all the time and everybody has bad luck and whatever, or you're in a zombie, thing where people kill themselves stupidly by accident all the time. In that case, leaving out the wild die is a fabulous idea, right? Like let's have the full stretch of all the possible bad, good and bad things that can happen.
which
But the
was-
wild die kind of like I said, it puts a floor on how bad you can be as a character.
Yes,
And that's
You
good
know,
for both.
I have a toddler to get to, so I need
Yep.
to go.
okay.
Absolutely.
But
Thank you.
again,
Thanks
Aaron,
for
it was
coming.
an absolute pleasure to meet you
Bye,
and
everyone.
to play
You too.
with you, and of course, my dear friends, all of you. Great to see you all again.
Keep in
And,
touch, Aldo. I miss
yeah.
you.
Before you click off, thanks for joining BWK. Please don't forget to subscribe and like. Bye.